How can we build a solarpunk society to optimize sustainability, environmental friendliness, and global harmony? Building a solarpunk society is about reimagining the future as a place where technology, nature, and humanity coexist harmoniously. It's a vision rooted in sustainability, decentralization, renewable energy, community empowerment, and cultural regeneration. Here is a comprehensive framework to build a solarpunk society that optimizes sustainability, environmental friendliness, and global harmony. Core principles of a solarpunk society. Regenerative sustainability. Go beyond reducing harm. Design systems that restore ecosystems, sequester carbon, and support biodiversity. Technological eco-integration. Use clean, open source, and locally adapted technologies to harmonize with nature instead of dominating it. Social justice and equity. Prioritize inclusivity, universal access to resources, and the dismantling of exploitative systems. Decentralization and resilience. Shift power and infrastructure from centralized models to local, community-controlled systems. Cultural reconnection. Revive and integrate indigenous knowledge, permaculture, and bioregional design. Infrastructure for a solarpunk society. Renewable energy networks. Solar panels, wind turbines, microhydro, geothermal systems. Energy cooperatives and peer-to-peer energy sharing using blockchain. Structural batteries and organic solar materials integrated into buildings. Eco-architecture and green cities. Passive solar buildings, ships, biophilic and biomimetic designs. Rooftop gardens, living walls, and urban forests for climate regulation. Car-free zones, walkability, and bike infrastructure. Food sovereignty systems. Permaculture farms, agroecology, and regenerative agriculture. Vertical farms, aquaponics, and community gardens. Seed saving, local heirloom crops, and food forests. Water and waste circularity. Rainwater harvesting, gray water reuse, and composting toilets. Decentralized bio-waste to biogas systems. Zero-waste practices and circular economy design. Green transportation. Solar-powered electric transit, shared mobility platforms, and magnetic rail. Bioplastics and carbon-negative materials for vehicle design. Incentives for biking, walking, and public transit use. Economy and governance. Post-capitalist. Regenerative economy. Local currencies, time banks, and resource-sharing networks. Worker-owned cooperatives and mutual aid systems. Open-source production of tools, software, and goods, e.g. Fab Labs. Participatory governance. Deliberative democracy, citizens' assemblies, and direct voting systems. Common stewardship of land, water, air, and biodiversity. Conflict resolution rooted in indigenous, nonviolent traditions. Digital infrastructure for good. Decentralized internet, mesh networks. AI, IoT, and blockchain used to optimize sustainability, not profit. Open access to environmental data and planning tools. Culture, education, and mindset. Holistic education. Emphasis on ecology, critical thinking, collaboration, and ethics. Eco-literacy, permaculture training, and indigenous knowledge. School gardens and practical sustainability projects from early education. Arts and storytelling. Encourage visions of hopeful futures through art, literature, and media. Solarpunk literature, music, design, and games to shift cultural imagination. Integrate festivals celebrating seasons, ecosystems, and community renewal. Mental and spiritual ecology. Practices like mindfulness, eco-psychology, and nature connection. Community healing, intergenerational dialogue, and cultural repair. Global harmony and cooperation. Support for decolonization, land rematriation, and indigenous sovereignty. Open source transfer of green technologies to the global south. Bioregional cooperation instead of extractive global trade systems. Global treaties on rewilding, carbon equity, and ecological restoration. Examples of technologies and systems to implement. Solarpunk solutions. Energy. Organic solar cells, solar trees, structural batteries. Food. Bioregional food webs, aquaponic towers, edible cities. Materials. Mycelium composites, nanocellulose, carbon-negative concrete. Buildings. Earthship homes, 3D printed earthen houses, algae facades. Transport. Solar EVs, community e-bikes, wind-powered water taxis. Tech. open-source permacomputing, AI-optimized circular systems, water, solar desalination, atmospheric water generators, biofiltration swales, pathways to transition, prototype eco-settlements, build experimental solarpunk villages and bioregional hubs, retrofit cities, apply solarpunk principles to transform urban neighborhoods, citizen assemblies, guide national and local transitions through direct democracy, global education movements, spread the solarpunk vision via schools, media, and online platforms, policy and incentives. Governments can support green innovation, cooperatives, and circular industries. Final vision. A solarpunk world is not utopian, but deeply practical. It's a world where homes generate energy, food, and water. People live in symbiosis with ecosystems. Technology serves life, not the market. Beauty and sustainability are inseparable. Every action heals, not harms the planet. Building a solarpunk society requires a complete transformation of how we live, produce, consume, and relate to nature and each other. Solarpunk is not just a visual aesthetic or science fiction genre. It is a practical and hopeful blueprint for a sustainable, just, and resilient future. It focuses on integrating clean technologies, community-based systems, ecological design, and social justice into daily life. A solarpunk society optimizes sustainability, environmental friendliness, and global harmony through regenerative systems, decentralized governance, and cultural renewal. Foundational principles of a solarpunk society. A solarpunk society is built upon several key values. Ecological regeneration. Instead of merely reducing environmental harm, solarpunk aims to actively heal and regenerate ecosystems. This includes restoring forests, wetlands, soils, and oceans, and promoting biodiversity. Technological harmony with nature. Technology in solarpunk is designed to work in cooperation with natural systems. For example, solar panels, wind turbines, and biodigesters are integrated into buildings and landscapes in ways that enhance ecological health. Decentralization and community empowerment. Solarpunk communities rely on local, small-scale systems for food, energy, and governance. Power is distributed, not concentrated, and communities have control over their own resources and decisions. Social justice and inclusivity. The solarpunk world eliminates exploitation and ensures equity. Resources are fairly shared, and all people have access to food, water, shelter, energy, education, and healthcare. Cultural reconnection. Indigenous knowledge, bioregional design, and ancestral wisdom are honored and integrated into modern life. Art, ritual, and storytelling are used to maintain a healthy cultural ecosystem. Built environments and infrastructure. In a solarpunk society, cities, towns, and rural areas are redesigned to reflect ecological and human needs. Architecture is eco-integrated. Buildings use natural, local, and renewable materials like bamboo, mycelium, and earth. Homes are designed for passive heating and cooling, natural lighting, and low-energy use. Living roofs, vertical gardens, and algae facades provide food, air purification, and insulation. Energy is renewable and decentralized. Power comes from solar, wind, geothermal, microhydro, and even algae-based bioenergy. Communities produce their own energy, store it in structural batteries or shared microgrids, and distribute it equitably. Transport is clean and shared. Cities prioritize walking, biking, and electric public transport powered by solar or wind. Streets are repurposed for greenways, community spaces, and nature corridors. Vehicles are shared, autonomous, and electric. Food is grown everywhere. Urban areas are filled with community gardens, vertical farms, food forests, and rooftop greenhouses. Rural areas use regenerative agriculture, permaculture, and agroforestry to sequester carbon and produce nutrient-rich, local food. Waste becomes a resource. There is no away in a solarpunk society. Organic waste is composted or turned into biogas. Materials are reused, recycled, and upcycled in closed-loop systems. Greywater is filtered through natural systems and reused. Governance, economy, and social systems. A solarpunk society replaces current centralized, profit-driven systems with equitable, participatory, and regenerative structures. Participatory governance replaces top-down politics. Citizens organize in assemblies and councils, using consensus or deliberative democracy to make decisions. Digital platforms enable open, transparent processes. The economy is cooperative and circular. Goods and services are produced by cooperatives, not corporations. Local currencies, bartering, and time banking reduce reliance on globalized capital. Every product is designed to be reused, repaired, or composted. Basic needs are guaranteed. Food, shelter, healthcare, energy, and education are rights, not privileges. Community wealth is shared, and people work fewer hours, focusing more on creativity, care, and restoration. Education is experiential and ecological. Schools teach permaculture, ecological design, systems thinking, and emotional intelligence. Children grow food, restore landscapes, and learn from elders and indigenous leaders. Technological and scientific innovations. Solarpunk does not reject technology. It redefines it to serve life rather than profit. Advanced and emerging technologies are used ethically and wisely. Nanotechnology is used to create biodegradable materials, efficient solar cells, and water purification systems. For example, nanocellulose can replace plastics in packaging and electronics. Biotechnology supports mycelium-based construction, algae fuel production, and biological carbon capture through engineered photosynthetic systems. Open-source technologies such as 3D printing, micromanufacturing, and digital fabrication allow communities to design and build their own tools, vehicles, and infrastructure locally. Decentralized digital infrastructure, using mesh networks and local servers, enables secure, community-owned internet systems. Artificial intelligence is used to manage food systems, energy use, and climate adaptation, guided by ecological ethics. Cultural and spiritual regeneration. Culture is not a side effect of Solarpunk. It is central to it. A Solarpunk society nurtures meaning, beauty, and connection. Art and storytelling are used to express values, share knowledge, and inspire change. Music, murals, theater, and Solarpunk fiction help reimagine what is possible. Spiritual and emotional well-being are valued. People engage in practices that cultivate inner peace and outer connection, including meditation, ritual, nature immersion, and community celebration. Intergenerational and intercultural knowledge are preserved and shared. Older generations teach skills like herbal medicine, sustainable crafts, and history, while younger people innovate new tools and systems. Global harmony and bioregional cooperation. Although Solarpunk is rooted in local communities, it also fosters global solidarity. Colonialism and extractivism are dismantled, and indigenous peoples regain land and governance rights. Traditional ecological knowledge is recognized as essential. Wealth and technology are shared globally, not hoarded. Northern countries support ecological regeneration and capacity building in the global south through reparations, education, and open-source innovation. Trade is bioregional and ecological. Communities exchange surpluses and unique resources respectfully. Instead of globalized consumerism, the world becomes a network of autonomous, thriving regions. A Solarpunk society is the result of aligning technology, ecology, community, and spirit in a harmonious system. It's not about returning to the past or abandoning progress, but about choosing a different kind of progress, one that centers life, justice, and planetary health. Through regenerative design, ecological living, decentralized governance, and cultural renewal, a Solarpunk future offers not just survival, but a thriving and beautiful world for all living beings. Building such a society requires imagination, cooperation, courage, and a commitment to healing both the planet and ourselves. Here is a comprehensive scenario describing how a Solarpunk society is built and gradually evolves, from the first seeds of change to a thriving, global transformation rooted in sustainability, environmental regeneration, and human harmony. Stage 1. Collapse sparks awakening, 2025 to 2035. By the mid-2020s, worsening climate disasters, megafires, floods, food shortages, and water scarcity, alongside economic inequality and political unrest, create widespread disillusionment with the global system. Governments struggle to respond, and centralized institutions begin to lose trust. Amid this collapse, small communities, scientists, indigenous groups, artists, and activists begin forming transition hubs, localized, experimental zones where people test new models of living. In these hubs, renewable energy microgrids replace fossil fuel dependence. Urban rooftops and abandoned lots are converted into food forests. Local currencies and barter economies emerge. Knowledge is shared openly, and mutual aid replaces bureaucracy. People rediscover meaning through reconnection with nature, culture, and each other. The solarpunk ethos is born, fueled by necessity, imagination, and a refusal to despair. Stage 2, Prototyping the Future, 2035 to 2045. With transition hubs spreading, the world enters an era of experimentation. From ruined cities to rural lands, solarpunk eco-villages, bioregional commons, and post-industrial retrofits emerge. International alliances begin supporting these prototypes. Key developments: permaculture farms, aquaponics, and agroforestry eliminate food insecurity in experimental zones. Solar and wind microgrids, structural batteries, and organic photovoltaics power local economies. Buildings are constructed using mycelium composites, bamboo, rammed earth, and 3D printed biopolymers. Circular manufacturing with bio-based and nanotech materials begins to replace extractive industries. AI tools and mesh networks help communities monitor ecosystems, optimize energy, and coordinate regeneration. Governments begin supporting these initiatives with incentives, education reforms, and land access. Meanwhile, fossil fuel industries rapidly lose support. Culture shifts. Solarpunk stories, music, fashion, and architecture go mainstream. Restoration festivals celebrate planting trees, healing waters, and rebuilding homes. Youth movements lead mass campaigns to restore degraded ecosystems and reclaim public spaces. Stage 3. Cities regenerate and networks expand, 2045 to 2060. As solarpunk settlements prove resilient, cities begin large-scale transformation. Dense urban zones are retrofitted into biophilic, self-sufficient eco-cities. Concrete is replaced with carbon-absorbing living structures. Streets are transformed into canals, food forests, and pedestrian pathways. Local energy cooperatives replace utility monopolies. High-rise buildings integrate vertical farms, algae reactors, and water capture systems. Every household generates surplus energy, food, and clean water. Rural areas, meanwhile, are reborn as bioregional stewards. Rewilding corridors reconnect ecosystems. Indigenous-led restoration projects regenerate entire river systems and forests. Distributed fabrication labs, Fab Labs, use open-source machines to locally produce tools, tech, and infrastructure. Global networks form. Commons pacts between bioregions ensure fair sharing of seeds, water, knowledge, and innovations. A global solarpunk forum emerges as a decentralized system for policymaking, education, and cultural diplomacy. Wealth is measured in ecosystem health, community well-being, and regenerative capacity. Stage 4, a global solarpunk civilization, 2060 to 2100. By the end of the 21st century, solarpunk has become a civilizational paradigm. The world is no longer defined by nation-states and markets, but by bioregions, cultural mosaics, and cooperative ecosystems. Planetary achievements. Carbon emissions are net negative through photosynthetic buildings, algae infrastructure, and widespread reforestation. Ocean and land ecosystems have rebounded due to global rewilding and marine reserves. Climate-resilient architecture and ecosystem-based adaptation prevent large-scale climate migration. All products are designed for disassembly, reuse, or biological reintegration. Every person has access to clean energy, water, food, and housing. Contributes to their local ecosystem's health and cultural vibrancy. Participates in direct democracy and bioregional decision-making. Education is lifelong and experiential. Children grow up immersed in nature, learning ecological skills, ethics, and systems thinking. Elders teach ancestral wisdom, herbal medicine, and cultural memory. AI mentors guide individual learning paths while helping steward planetary health. Technology is deeply humane. Artificial intelligence is used for ecosystem monitoring, conflict resolution, and optimization of circular economies. Nanomaterials and biofabrication are used to grow everything from solar fabrics to biodegradable electronics. The internet is fully decentralized and powered by renewable energy, promoting free knowledge, local cultures, and planetary awareness. Closing vision, life in a solarpunk world. Imagine waking up in your algae-covered, solar-powered home, surrounded by fruit trees, birdsong, and flowing water. Your building is part of a living network that provides energy, food, and filtered air. You walk or bike along tree-lined greenways to your community council meeting, passing murals, musicians, and friends exchanging harvests. You might work a few hours designing biodegradable tech, restoring wetlands, or mentoring children. You may spend the afternoon in a solar temple, forest classroom, or rooftop garden. At night, your community gathers for song, story, and shared meals under glowing mycelium lamps and stars. You feel connected to the land, to your people, and to a thriving just planet. That is the solarpunk future, not perfect, but resilient, beautiful, and alive. How can we establish the most sustainable, nature-rich, and harmonious solarpunk society? To establish the most sustainable, nature-rich, and harmonious solarpunk society, we must integrate ecological science, community cooperation, regenerative technologies, indigenous knowledge, and ethical design into every aspect of life. Below is a comprehensive step-by-step framework that outlines how such a civilization can be founded and flourish over time. Foundational principles and philosophy. A truly solarpunk society is guided by principles that ensure sustainability, ecological integration, and social equity. Regeneration instead of exploitation. Localization of economies and resources. Decentralization of power and infrastructure. Biophilic design that integrates nature into all structures and systems. Diversity and inclusion in cultural, ecological, and social life. Harmony with planetary boundaries, not domination over them. These principles must be embedded in education, governance, architecture, and values from the start. Designing solarpunk settlements. Architecture and infrastructure. Use biomaterials like bamboo, hempcrete, mycelium composites, rammed earth, and carbon-negative concrete. Design buildings with passive solar heating, green roofs, and living walls to reduce energy use and support biodiversity. Integrate modular solar, wind, and microhydro systems with structural batteries embedded in homes and roads. Include permeable surfaces and water harvesting roofs to manage rainwater and replenish aquifers. Urban layout. Prioritize compact, walkable, mixed-use communities to eliminate car dependency. Transform streets into green corridors with trees, edible landscaping, and bike lanes. Embed agriculture in every district via vertical farms, community gardens, food forests, and aquaponics. Regenerative food and land systems. Agroecology and food sovereignty. Replace monoculture farms with agroforestry, permaculture, silvopasture, and intercropping. Grow nutritious, perennial crops that mimic wild ecosystems and require minimal input. Decentralize food production into urban and rural bioregional networks. Integrate pollinator habitats and wildlife corridors into food systems. Wildlife and ecosystem integration. Design with rewilding zones, wetlands, forests, and native species restoration. Ban deforestation and instead plant biodiverse forests on degraded lands. Use AI-guided restoration tools and community ecological monitoring systems. Circular and clean technologies. Energy systems. Combine solar, wind, geothermal, and ocean energy into decentralized grids. Use organic photovoltaics, perovskite solar cells, and energy-storing building materials. Power all tools, vehicles, and homes with renewable, distributed energy. Circular manufacturing. Shift to biodegradable, reparable, and recyclable products made from algae bioplastics, nanocellulose, and fungi-based materials. Replace extraction with urban mining, 3D printing with waste, and carbon-negative production. Designed for modular reuse so that everything can be disassembled, repurposed, or returned to the earth. Equitable and participatory society. Bioregional governance. Organize governance around bioregions, not nation-states. Practice direct democracy, consensus decision-making, and citizen assemblies. Allow indigenous peoples to co-lead land and water stewardship. Education and culture. Shift to lifelong place-based education that teaches ecological literacy, ethics, permaculture, systems thinking, and craft. Promote solarpunk art, music, storytelling, and myth-making that celebrate life, nature, and harmony. Replace consumerism with rituals, festivals, and gifting economies that nurture relationships and meaning. Water, waste, and health systems. Water systems. Capture, filter, and reuse water through rainwater harvesting, solar desalination, and greywater recycling. Restore wetlands and floodplains to store water naturally and enhance biodiversity. Waste systems. Eliminate the concept of waste. All materials become food for another system. Use composting toilets, biogas digesters, and blackwater treatment wetlands. Implement zero-waste manufacturing and community repair hubs. Health and well-being. Provide universal access to holistic, preventative healthcare rooted in nature, movement, nutrition, and community support. Integrate herbal medicine, traditional healing, and modern science. Design cities for mental health with quiet spaces, green therapy, and art everywhere. Global collaboration for harmony. Create a global commons council, a decentralized planetary alliance to share technology, seeds, knowledge, and culture. Practice climate justice, degrowth for wealthy nations, and equity-based transition financing. Rewild the Earth together through massive global restoration missions that unite people across borders. Celebrate planetary citizenship where identity is rooted in Earth stewardship, not extraction or nationalism. A living civilization. A solarpunk society is not static or utopian. It is a living, evolving, adaptive system in partnership with the biosphere. It is built not through top-down planning or sudden revolution, but through thousands of small, intentional regenerative acts, spreading like mycelium, quietly, cooperatively, and beautifully. The solarpunk future is made of forests that feed cities, rivers that flow clean again, buildings that breathe, and people who live in peace with the earth and each other. To establish the most sustainable, nature-rich, and harmonious solarpunk society, we must transform how we live, build, grow, consume, govern, and relate to nature and one another. Solarpunk is more than an aesthetic. It is a practical and visionary blueprint for a regenerative civilization where technology and ecology work together in balance. This comprehensive explanation outlines the essential elements of such a society, how it would function, and how it could be gradually developed. A philosophy rooted in harmony with nature. A solarpunk society begins with a foundational philosophy of regeneration, in which human systems are designed to support and enhance the living world. Unlike extractive or industrial models, solarpunk societies prioritize restoration of ecosystems rather than exploitation of resources, equity and social justice, ensuring all people have access to a safe and fulfilling life, decentralized and participatory governance, empowering communities, integration of science, traditional knowledge, and creativity in solving problems. This mindset must be taught through education, embedded in laws and infrastructure, and celebrated through culture. Designing nature-rich and self-sufficient settlements. Cities and towns in a solarpunk society are designed as living ecosystems. Eco-architecture. Buildings are constructed using biodegradable and carbon-negative materials such as bamboo, hempcrete, rammed earth, or mycelium composites. Structures are equipped with green roofs, solar panels, vertical gardens, and passive solar design to naturally regulate temperature and produce energy. Every neighborhood includes communal gardens, food forests, and wetlands integrated into its layout. Urban planning. Cities are compact, walkable, and bike-friendly, reducing the need for cars. Edible landscaping replaces lawns. Streets are lined with fruit trees and pollinator habitats. Public spaces and forests are interwoven to support biodiversity and improve mental health. These cities not only minimize pollution and resource use, but also foster connection between people and the land. Regenerative agriculture and localized food systems. Food systems are decentralized and based on ecological principles. Permaculture and agroforestry are widespread, blending trees, crops, and animals in mutually beneficial systems. Farms are built into cities using vertical gardens, aquaponics, and rooftop food production. People grow food in their own homes and neighborhoods, reducing dependency on global supply chains. Biodiverse, perennial crops replace chemical-intensive monocultures, restoring soil and attracting wildlife. Local seed-sharing networks and food co-ops ensure community control over food production and distribution. This approach increases resilience, food security, and health while healing the land. Circular economy and clean technologies. A solarpunk society runs on renewable, decentralized energy and embraces circular production. Energy is harvested from solar, wind, geothermal, tidal, and bio-waste sources. Buildings, vehicles, and infrastructure use structural batteries and organic photovoltaics to store energy within materials. Manufacturing is circular, waste is repurposed, and everything is designed to be reused, composted, or repaired. Materials are sourced from algae, bioplastics, nanocellulose, fungi, or reclaimed waste instead of virgin resources. 3D printing with recycled materials enables localized, low-impact production of goods and infrastructure. The economy no longer depends on extraction or endless growth, but thrives by regenerating the Earth's cycles. Community, equity, and participatory governance. Social systems are built on cooperation, equity, and empowerment. Governance is bioregional, meaning communities organize themselves based on natural boundaries like watersheds. Decision-making is participatory and democratic, using citizen assemblies and consensus models. Indigenous leadership and traditional ecological knowledge are honored in land management and education. Resources like housing, energy, food, and tools are managed through community ownership, cooperatives, and mutual aid networks. Cultural diversity is celebrated, and people are encouraged to express identity through art, language, ritual, and storytelling. This fosters a sense of shared responsibility and belonging essential for long-term harmony. Restorative water and waste systems. In a solarpunk society, nothing is wasted. All materials and resources circulate within living systems. Water is conserved through rainwater harvesting, greywater reuse, and natural filtration systems like reed beds and wetlands. Composting toilets and biogas digesters convert organic waste into energy and fertilizer. Packaging is minimal, reusable, and made from materials that return safely to the environment. Neighborhood-level repair workshops and material recovery centers extend product life and reduce consumption. Communities eliminate pollution by designing closed-loop systems in which waste from one process becomes the input for another. These systems help regenerate ecosystems, reduce disease, and ensure long-term resilience. Education, health, and cultural flourishing. Education and healthcare are holistic, lifelong, and nature-connected. Education. Schools are replaced or complemented by ecological learning centers, farms, makerspaces, and art studios. Children and adults learn permaculture, climate science, design, ethics, and systems thinking alongside math, languages, and history. Learning is hands-on, cooperative, and place-based, encouraging curiosity, empathy, and agency. Health. Public health emphasizes prevention, nutrition, movement, and emotional well-being. Medical systems combine modern science with traditional medicine and herbalism. Cities are designed for mental health, with quiet nature areas, art installations, and strong social bonds. Culture. Festivals, storytelling, and rituals center around seasonal cycles, nature appreciation, and community achievements. The arts are valued as a way to imagine better futures, process grief, and express joy. This ensures that society is not only sustainable, but also emotionally and spiritually fulfilling. Global harmony and solidarity. A solarpunk world collaborates across borders to solve global challenges. Countries and bioregions form a global commons alliance to share technology, seeds, data, and resources. Wealthy nations support climate justice and ecological reparations through fair resource redistribution. A planetary restoration campaign mobilizes people to reforest degraded lands, clean oceans, and restore biodiversity. Global supply chains are replaced by regional networks rooted in ecological limits and shared values. People identify not by flags or corporations, but as Earth citizens and caretakers of the biosphere. Through cooperation, peace, and shared responsibility, humanity can live within its means and help nature flourish. A thriving, living civilization. A solarpunk society is not a fantasy. It is an achievable way of life rooted in ecological wisdom, community resilience, and regenerative technology. It does not reject progress, but redefines it as the ability to live well without harming the earth or others. It is built not by corporations or governments alone, but by communities, artists, farmers, scientists, elders, and youth working together. In this society, nature is not a backdrop, it is a partner. Technology is not exploitative, it is adaptive. People are not consumers, they are co-creators of a living world. This future is possible, and it begins with choices we make today. This video explores a forward-looking concept, solarpunk, which envisions a sustainable, cooperative society that reimagines how we design systems, cities, and economies. Here's a breakdown of the key ideas. What is solarpunk? Solarpunk is a movement and aesthetic combining advanced clean energy tech like solar panels and wind turbines with green design, community gardens, and self-sufficient neighborhoods. It imagines urban spaces where nature and technology are integrated harmoniously, rooftop farms, vertical gardens, energy-positive buildings, and efficient public transportation. The problem: greed and capitalism. The video argues that unchecked capitalism often leads to over-extraction, inequality, and environmental harm. It critiques how profit-driven structures prioritize short-term gains over long-term well-being, both for people and the planet. Solarpunk's alternative model. Decentralized energy. Communities generate their own power, backed by solar panels, wind farms, and shared batteries, reducing dependence on large corporations and empowering local resilience. Cooperative governance. Economies and cities are run by communal decision-making, focusing on collective benefit instead of for-profit motives. Circular economy. Waste becomes a resource. Reuse, repurpose, repair, recycle. Materials are kept in continuous loops rather than being discarded. Social equity. Solarpunk emphasizes inclusivity, public spaces, affordable housing, accessible transit, and equitable distribution of resources. Technological innovation. Clean tech isn't just functional, it's beautiful and integrated into everyday design, e.g. solar windows, green architecture. Why it matters. Environmental resilience. By reducing reliance on fossil fuels and wasteful practices, Solarpunk helps fight climate change. Economic justice. It promotes an economy grounded in cooperation, fair wages, and shared resources. Community well-being. Prioritizing sustainable living and local autonomy fosters stronger, healthier social bonds. This video paints Solarpunk not as mere utopia, but a practical blueprint, a way to redesign systems from the ground up. It invites viewers to question entrenched profit-first models and consider community-centered, sustainable alternatives that challenge greed with creativity. Solarpunk is a forward-thinking vision and movement that combines sustainability, technology, and social equity to reimagine the future of human civilization. It envisions a world where ecological balance, community well-being, and technological advancement coexist harmoniously. Rather than relying on centralized, profit-driven systems that dominate the current global economy, Solarpunk focuses on decentralized, regenerative systems that prioritize the planet and the people. At the core of Solarpunk is the integration of clean, renewable energy such as solar, wind, and geothermal into daily life. This energy is often produced at the community or household level, empowering individuals and neighborhoods to become self-reliant and energy independent. By doing so, Solarpunk reduces dependence on large corporations and fossil fuels, lowering emissions and increasing resilience against environmental and economic shocks. Another central pillar of Solarpunk is cooperative governance. Decision-making is localized and participatory, involving communities in shaping their own environments and economies. This model challenges hierarchical power structures and encourages shared ownership, collective action, and democratic engagement. Instead of prioritizing short-term profits, systems are designed around long-term sustainability and collective well-being. Circular economy principles are fundamental to Solarpunk. Products and materials are designed to be reused, repaired, and recycled in continuous loops. Waste is minimized or even eliminated, as outputs from one system become inputs for another. This shift from linear to circular thinking conserves natural resources and reduces environmental degradation. Green architecture and urban design play an important role as well. Buildings incorporate living walls, rooftop gardens, solar panels, and energy-efficient technologies. Cities are reshaped into livable, biodiverse, and interconnected spaces that blend nature with innovation. Public transportation, walkable neighborhoods, and communal green spaces are prioritized to enhance social connection and environmental health. Social equity is deeply embedded in the Solarpunk vision. Access to clean energy, nutritious food, safe housing, and meaningful work is considered a right, not a privilege. The system actively addresses systemic injustices by redistributing power, resources, and opportunities. Marginalized communities are placed at the forefront of decision-making and regeneration efforts. Rather than resisting technological progress, Solarpunk embraces it, but with intention. Technology is designed to serve human and ecological needs, not to exploit them. Innovations such as solar glass, algae bioreactors, and decentralized water systems are used to build a future that is not only functional, but also beautiful, just, and ecologically sound. In essence, Solarpunk is not just a speculative vision. It is a practical framework for transforming the way society functions. It challenges dominant narratives of greed, scarcity, and competition with models based on abundance, cooperation, and regeneration. By fostering a culture of care, creativity, and sustainability, Solarpunk offers a roadmap for a livable and thriving future on Earth. Capitalism, as it exists today, often centers around maximizing profit, which can lead to excessive consumption, environmental destruction, social inequality, and corporate greed. This system tends to reward those who accumulate wealth and power, while externalizing the costs onto workers, communities, and ecosystems. The result is a global structure where basic needs like clean air, housing, healthcare, and education become commodities instead of rights, and where economic growth is prioritized at the expense of ecological and human health. An alternative framework that challenges these destructive patterns is the Solarpunk vision. It imagines a future where society organizes itself around sustainability, equity, and decentralized cooperation. In this model, energy is generated from renewable sources like solar and wind, owned and managed by local communities. This decentralization reduces dependence on large corporations and allows people to control their own energy systems, cutting down on environmental impact and promoting energy justice. Economies in this model are based on mutual aid, local resilience, and circular design. Goods are produced in ways that eliminate waste, using recyclable and regenerative materials. Instead of relying on endless consumption and global supply chains, communities grow food locally, produce what they need sustainably, and share resources. This form of living reduces environmental degradation while increasing collective well-being. Public spaces and infrastructure are reimagined to promote social connection and ecological integration. Green architecture becomes the norm, buildings covered in plants, powered by solar panels, and built with natural, non-toxic materials. Urban areas are filled with community gardens, public transit, and bike paths. Cities function more like ecosystems than industrial machines, fostering a culture of cooperation rather than competition. Decision-making is no longer controlled by corporate interests or remote institutions, but is placed in the hands of communities through participatory processes. This ensures that economic systems serve everyone, not just the wealthy few. It dismantles hierarchies and builds horizontal, inclusive structures where people collaborate to meet common needs. This vision also transforms how success is measured. Instead of focusing on GDP or profit margins, value is defined by community health, biodiversity, access to basic needs, and long-term ecological balance. Technology is used as a tool to regenerate nature and enhance quality of life, not to exploit labor or extract resources. In this future, art, culture, and creativity are essential. The world is not only more sustainable, but also more beautiful, expressive, and emotionally fulfilling. People live in balance with the earth and with each other, grounded in a shared ethic of care, interdependence, and stewardship. This model represents a profound shift in how society could function, moving away from systems rooted in exploitation and greed toward those built on regeneration, justice, and collective empowerment. It is both an ecological and cultural transformation aimed at healing the damage done by extractive capitalism and creating a world where everyone can thrive. Democratic eco-socialism. A system where the economy and key resources are democratically owned and managed to meet the needs of people and the planet. Emphasizes environmental justice, wealth redistribution, and community control over production. Prioritizes long-term ecological sustainability rather than economic growth for its own sake. Regenerative economy. Focuses on healing ecosystems, communities, and economies rather than exploiting them. Operates in circular loops where waste becomes input and all processes replenish natural and social capital. Encourages localism, bioregionalism, and planetary stewardship. Cooperative economy. Built on shared ownership, e.g., worker cooperatives, community land trusts. Wealth and decision-making are distributed democratically, rather than concentrated in private hands. Values include solidarity, equity, mutual aid, and collective well-being over individual profit. Solarpunk/post-capitalist vision. A cultural and economic framework that integrates renewable energy, ecological design, and community-based governance. Centers around sufficiency, regeneration, and technological harmony with nature. Envisions cities and economies functioning like ecosystems, resilient, decentralized, and inclusive. Degrowth or post-growth economics. Challenges the idea that progress depends on infinite economic growth. Advocates for slowing down consumption, reducing inequality, and focusing on well-being and ecological balance. Supports sharing economies, public services, low-impact lifestyles, and relocalization. Key principles across these systems. Ecological limits are respected. Basic needs like food, water, energy, housing, health, education are guaranteed for all. Colonialism, exploitation, and resource extraction are actively dismantled. Cultural diversity, indigenous knowledge, and natural systems are honored and integrated. Technology is used as a tool for restoration, accessibility, and resilience, not domination. Together, these ideas represent a shift toward a regenerative, equitable, and life-centered future, one where people live in harmony with nature and each other, rather than in competition for profit and power. This is the functional and philosophical opposite of capitalist systems rooted in growth, extraction, and accumulation. The opposite of capitalism in this context is not one rigid system, but a plurality of regenerative, democratic, and just alternatives. These models shift power away from corporations and extractive markets and toward people, ecosystems, and long-term resilience. They prioritize life over profit, cooperation over competition, and stewardship over exploitation, building a future in which both humanity and the planet can thrive together. Build the vision and culture of Solarpunk. Inspire imagination and collective purpose. Create and share stories, art, music, films, and designs that depict beautiful, livable Solarpunk futures. Organize community art events, local festivals, and exhibitions to engage the public emotionally and creatively. Establish a unifying narrative that connects climate action, justice, innovation, and ecological harmony. Educate for transformation. Launch educational campaigns online and local on regenerative design, permaculture, renewable energy, ecological economics, and social justice. Integrate Solarpunk concepts into school curriculums, design schools, and technical training programs. Promote scientific literacy and indigenous ecological knowledge side by side. Green and retrofit urban infrastructure. Rewild and reforest cities. Plant urban forests, green corridors, and native vegetation in streets, rooftops, parks, and walls. Incentivize green roofs, vertical gardens, and pollinator-friendly landscapes. Turn abandoned lots into community gardens, food forests, or natural sanctuaries. Build smart, regenerative infrastructure. Construct energy-positive buildings using solar panels, passive design, natural materials, and biophilic architecture. Retrofit old buildings with solar windows, rainwater systems, and insulation. Use circular materials, modular construction, and carbon sequestering materials like hempcrete, mycelium bricks, or nanocellulose composites. Deploy clean, decentralized technologies. Transition to community-based renewable energy. Develop microgrids using solar, wind, biogas, and battery storage that are owned by neighborhoods or energy cooperatives. Encourage open-source hardware and energy-sharing platforms for peer-to-peer power exchange. Integrate clean water and waste systems. Install composting toilets, gray water recycling, atmospheric water generators, and decentralized sewage treatment wetlands. Promote zero-waste models, composting, and local-scale circular manufacturing systems. Electrify and democratize transportation. Expand bike infrastructure, light rail, electric buses, and walkable neighborhoods. Create shared fleets of solar-charged electric bikes and vehicles. Turn rural and degraded lands into regenerative landscapes. Launch global rewilding and afforestation projects. Restore ecosystems by planting native trees, wetland plants, and biodiverse polycultures on degraded lands. Combine agroforestry, rewilding, and regenerative agriculture to balance food production with carbon sequestration. Use drones and satellite mapping for large-scale planting and ecosystem monitoring. Protect biodiversity and indigenous stewardship. Legally recognize and expand community-managed forests and indigenous protected areas. Prioritize ecological corridors and reintroduction of native species. Stop deforestation by enforcing bans and supporting sustainable livelihoods for forest communities. Create a regenerative, circular economy. Localize and democratize production. Develop makerspaces, biofabrication labs, and repair cafes that promote decentralized, sustainable manufacturing. Use mycelium, algae, bamboo, hemp, and nanocellulose to produce biodegradable alternatives to plastic, steel, and cement. Designed for circularity. All products should be reparable, recyclable, compostable, or modular. Implement producer responsibility laws, material passports, and local remanufacturing centers. Support governance, policy, and justice systems. Democratize decision-making. Form citizen assemblies, neighborhood councils, and climate action cooperatives that make decisions on land use, budgets, and local energy systems. Promote open-source governance tools and transparent platforms for community participation. Push for global policy change. Advocate for policies that ban fossil fuels and incentivize renewables. Tax pollution and redistribute resources equitably. Fund regenerative farming, reforestation, and universal basic services. Align local action with global movements. Connect with networks like Transition Towns, Climate Justice Alliance, Extinction Rebellion, Fridays for Future, and Green New Deal coalitions. Support a just transition that uplifts frontline communities, workers, and indigenous peoples. Catalyze the movement with alliances and ecosystems. Build interconnected communities. Link cities, villages, collectives, cooperatives, scientists, artists, engineers, and activists around Solarpunk principles. Create a global alliance of regenerative cities and regions that share knowledge, resources, and tools. Use media and technology for amplification. Share open-source designs, blueprints, and success stories through online platforms. Launch a Solarpunk network of media, education, collaboration, and funding tools, apps, web portals, podcasts, streaming content. A Solarpunk planet. Through collective imagination and implementation, this movement would reshape human civilization into a network of vibrant, green, tech-enhanced, and life-affirming cities and ecosystems. The world would be rich in forests, biodiversity, clean water, breathable air, and regenerative communities. Instead of cities being centers of consumption and pollution, they will become ecological sanctuaries and hubs of innovation and resilience, living in harmony with Earth's systems and safeguarding life for generations to come. Establish a clear, compelling vision. The Solarpunk movement must begin by creating a unifying and inspiring vision of the future. This vision should depict a world where technology is used to regenerate nature, cities are designed as living ecosystems, and people live in equitable, cooperative communities. Art, literature, film, architecture, and education can be powerful tools to shape public imagination. By promoting stories, images, and prototypes of Solarpunk futures, the movement can generate emotional resonance and mass engagement. These narratives help people believe a better world is possible and worth working toward. Educate and empower local communities. Education is essential for long-term transformation. The Solarpunk movement should foster public understanding of ecology, renewable energy, permaculture, regenerative agriculture, circular economy principles, and cooperative economics. This can be achieved through community workshops, public lectures, online courses, and local pilot projects. Education should also emphasize systems thinking, encouraging people to see the interconnections between energy, food, transportation, housing, culture, and the environment. Schools, universities, and informal learning spaces should be involved in spreading these principles across all age groups. Transform urban spaces into green, regenerative cities. To embody Solarpunk principles, urban environments must be redesigned to function like ecosystems. This includes integrating nature into architecture with green roofs, vertical gardens, living walls, and rooftop farms. Cities should prioritize walkability, like infrastructure, public transportation, and open green spaces. Abandoned or underused spaces can be converted into community gardens, biodiversity sanctuaries, and re-wilded corridors. Buildings should be constructed or retrofitted using sustainable materials such as bamboo, hempcrete, mycelium, and nanocellulose, with integrated solar panels, passive heating/cooling, and energy-efficient systems. Deploy decentralized, clean technologies. Technology plays a central role in the Solarpunk vision, but only when it is designed and used responsibly. Clean energy systems must be decentralized, locally owned, and renewable, including solar panels, wind turbines, and microhydro units. Communities should install energy storage systems, like batteries or hydrogen fuel cells, to ensure resilience. Wastewater and graywater recycling, atmospheric water generators, and composting toilets can provide sustainable water systems. Smart grids, open-source tools, and sensor networks can optimize energy, water, and resource use across neighborhoods. These technologies should be accessible and maintained through local cooperatives and training programs. Restore ecosystems and reforest the earth. A central goal of the Solarpunk movement is to reverse environmental degradation by rewilding and reforesting both urban and rural areas. Large-scale reforestation using native species, assisted natural regeneration, and agroforestry systems can capture carbon, restore biodiversity, protect watersheds, and regenerate soils. Cities should be designed with ecological corridors that allow wildlife to move and ecosystems to thrive. On degraded or abandoned land, communities can implement permaculture farms, food forests, and pollinator-friendly habitats. Digital tools like drones, AI-driven reforestation mapping, and soil monitoring sensors can aid in scaling ecosystem restoration. Create regenerative, circular, and local economies. Solarpunk economics rejects extractive and wasteful systems. Instead, it embraces circularity and regeneration, where materials are designed to be reused, composted, or endlessly cycled. Local economies must be built around worker-owned cooperatives, repair workshops, zero-waste businesses, and local food systems. Resources should be shared through libraries of things, tool banks, and community kitchens. By producing goods and food locally using sustainable materials such as hemp, algae, bamboo, and fungi, regions can become more self-sufficient and reduce ecological footprints. All economic activity should be evaluated by its social and ecological benefits, not just financial profit. Restructure governance and decision-making. A solarpunk society must be democratic and participatory. Local decision-making structures such as citizen assemblies, community councils, and digital participatory budgeting platforms should give people real power over the design of their cities, infrastructure, and economies. Governance must be transparent, accountable, and inclusive, especially of marginalized communities, indigenous peoples, and youth. Global solidarity is also vital. This includes supporting climate justice, dismantling colonial systems of exploitation, and promoting the equitable distribution of resources and technology. Policies that support solarpunk transformation, such as subsidies for green building, bans on fossil fuels, and investments in public goods, must be enacted through political engagement and activism. Build alliances and scale the movement globally. To grow, the solarpunk movement must connect local initiatives into a global network of communities, cities, researchers, designers, activists, and innovators. Shared platforms can enable the exchange of blueprints, knowledge, seeds, tools, and strategies. Collaboration across disciplines, science, engineering, art, ecology, education, and governance will accelerate innovation and adaptation. Open-source technology and distributed manufacturing can empower people everywhere to replicate and improve solarpunk solutions. A global solarpunk alliance would work across borders to address planetary challenges like climate change, biodiversity loss, and ecological injustice. Foster a culture of care, creativity, and stewardship. Ultimately, the solarpunk movement is not just technical or political, it is also cultural and emotional. It is about shifting values from consumption and domination to gratitude, community, balance, and care. A solarpunk society celebrates art, music, storytelling, and imagination as essential forces for healing and innovation. Festivals, rituals, and public spaces can cultivate connection between people, place, and the living earth. This cultural transformation is key to sustaining long-term ecological harmony. A regenerative, beautiful, just world. If the solarpunk movement is widely adopted and supported, the outcome could be a planet of thriving ecosystems and flourishing communities. Cities will become climate-resilient, biodiverse, energy-independent, and human-scaled. Forests, wetlands, and oceans will regenerate, cleaning the air and restoring climate stability. People will enjoy clean water, nutritious food, universal access to housing and energy, and meaningful work rooted in care and creativity. Technology will enhance life without destroying it. This is not a utopian fantasy. It is a practical, holistic response to the crises of our time and a pathway to a livable, equitable future. Clean energy technologies. Solar power and energy storage. Technologies, perovskite solar cells, solar glass, building integrated photovoltaics, BIPV, and flexible organic solar films. Strategy, deploy on rooftops, walls, windows, and public infrastructure to create energy-positive buildings. Combine with community batteries, hydrogen storage, and thermal energy storage to ensure round-the-clock energy access. Wind and microgrids. Technologies, vertical axis micro wind turbines, community-scale wind farms, smart microgrids. Strategy, use in urban, coastal, or elevated areas, integrated with solar for hybrid grids, democratize access via energy cooperatives. Geothermal and heat pumps. Technologies, geothermal heat exchangers, air source and ground source heat pumps. Strategy, power heating and cooling in homes and buildings, reducing fossil fuel dependence and improving energy efficiency. Green building and urban design. Sustainable and regenerative materials. Technologies. Hempcrete, mycelium bricks, bamboo composites, recycled plastic panels, carbon-negative concrete, nanocellulose. Strategy. Replace carbon-intensive materials like cement and steel. Develop modular, adaptive, and carbon-sequestering architecture. Biophilic and passive design. Technologies. Living walls, green roofs, light wells, passive solar heating, natural ventilation systems. Strategy. Design buildings that mimic natural systems, reduce energy demand, and integrate biodiversity within urban spaces. Vertical farming and urban agriculture. Technologies. Hydroponics, aquaponics, aeroponics, AI-powered crop monitoring, LED spectrum tuning. Strategy. Use rooftops and indoor spaces for year-round food production, reducing transport emissions and increasing food security. Circular and regenerative systems. Circular manufacturing and 3D printing. Technologies. Distributed manufacturing, 3D printing with recycled plastics, biodegradable biopolymers, digital material tracking, e.g. material passports. Strategy. Create zero-waste local production systems with tools, parts, and everyday items made on demand. Closed-loop water and waste systems. Technologies. Rainwater harvesting, gray water recycling, composting toilets, biodigesters, constructed wetlands. Strategy. Decentralize water and sanitation infrastructure, eliminate water waste, and return nutrients to soil through compost. Regenerative agriculture and soil tech. Technologies. AI-powered soil health diagnostics, microbial biofertilizers, no-till tools, keyline water systems. Strategy. Restore ecosystems and sequester carbon in soil while producing food using permaculture, agroecology, and agroforestry. Intelligent and responsive systems. AI for ecosystem monitoring and management. Technologies. AI-powered drones, remote sensing satellites, IoT sensors, and digital twins. Strategy. Monitor urban air, soil, water, and biodiversity in real time for data-informed, adaptive management of cities and ecosystems. Smart city platforms. Technologies. Decentralized data networks, sensor-based energy and traffic control, blockchain for resource sharing. Strategy. Build cities that self-optimize energy, transportation, waste, and emergency systems without surveillance capitalism. Sustainable mobility and infrastructure. Green public transit and micromobility. Technologies. Electric buses, hydrogen trains, solar-powered trams, bike highways, autonomous EVs. Strategy. Build compact, car-free cities where transit is clean, affordable, and accessible. Incentivize biking and walking. Regenerative infrastructure. Technologies. Porous pavement, solar road panels, mycelium-based insulation, algae-based paints that absorb CO2. Strategy. Design infrastructure that heals ecosystems, cools cities, and reduces urban heat islands. Global and local implementation strategies. Community ownership and governance. Establish energy cooperatives, food co-ops, housing collectives, and land trusts. Use citizen assemblies, participatory budgeting, and open-source urban planning to ensure inclusion and equity. Policy and legal tools. Enact policies like ban on fossil fuels, subsidies for regenerative design, right to repair laws, Green New Deal frameworks. Protect and expand rights of nature, indigenous land rights, and ecological justice frameworks. Networked collaboration and open knowledge. Create open-source blueprints, toolkits, and learning platforms to spread Solarpunk technologies globally. Build networks of regenerative cities, climate innovators, indigenous stewards, and scientific communities. Ecological restoration and forest integration. Reforestation and bioremediation. Technologies. Drone-based tree planting, microbial soil inoculants, mycoremediation, fungi to clean pollution. Strategy. Regrow forests on degraded lands, restore biodiversity, and clean polluted environments using biological systems. Planetary rewilding and conservation. Support efforts to rewild ecosystems, establish corridors for wildlife, and create carbon sinks through native forest growth. Blend cultural land stewardship with scientific restoration planning. Summary of the best pathways to Solarpunk transformation. Energy: solar, wind, geothermal, microgrids. Community-owned, decentralized renewables. Urban design: green architecture, passive design. Ecological, energy-positive, biophilic cities. Agriculture: agroforestry, permaculture, soil tech. Local, regenerative, biodiversity-enhancing food systems. Economy: circular manufacturing, cooperatives. Shared, equitable, regenerative production and trade. Infrastructure: smart systems, porous roads, solar mobility. Integrated, responsive, and low-impact networks. Culture and governance: open source tools, citizen assemblies. Democratic, localized, and inclusive governance. Ecosystem restoration: drones, mycoremediation, afforestation. Rewilding, reforestation, ecological resilience. By combining these technologies with regenerative ethics and participatory systems, we can reshape the world into a solarpunk society, where urban life enhances the planet, not depletes it. The path forward is practical, interdisciplinary, and rooted in the belief that humans can be stewards, not destroyers of Earth. Transition to clean, decentralized energy systems. One of the most critical steps is to move away from fossil fuels and create a global energy system based entirely on renewable sources. This includes solar, wind, geothermal, small-scale hydropower, and bioenergy. Technologies such as perovskite solar cells, building integrated photovoltaics, and organic solar films allow us to generate energy directly from rooftops, windows, and walls, transforming buildings into energy producers. To ensure energy reliability, especially when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing, advanced energy storage systems must be deployed. These include solid-state batteries, flow batteries, hydrogen storage, and thermal energy systems. Pairing these technologies with smart microgrids allows neighborhoods to operate independently from centralized utilities, increasing resilience during outages or crises. When communities own and manage their energy systems, energy access becomes more equitable and local economies are strengthened. Design cities to function like ecosystems. The built environment must be redesigned using the principles of biophilic and regenerative design. Cities should incorporate green roofs, vertical gardens, tree-lined streets, and public forests to restore biodiversity and cool urban areas. Buildings should use passive solar design, natural ventilation, and high-efficiency insulation to drastically reduce energy demand. Construction materials must also shift towards sustainable and regenerative options. Materials like hempcrete, mycelium-based bricks, bamboo composites, and nanocellulose are low-carbon, biodegradable, and can even sequester carbon. These materials not only reduce environmental impact but also improve indoor air quality and structural performance. In urban spaces, formerly underutilized or paved over land can be converted into community gardens, food forests, and wildlife corridors. Cities can be designed with compact, walkable neighborhoods, powered by renewable public transit, eliminating the need for private cars. This urban redesign not only improves environmental performance, but also enhances quality of life. Implement circular and regenerative resource systems. A solarpunk future cannot depend on a linear economy where resources are extracted, used, and discarded. Instead, we must implement a circular economy where all materials and waste are part of continuous regenerative loops. This involves using products designed for durability, repairability, and modularity, and developing local manufacturing systems using 3D printing and recycled materials. Wastewater and stormwater should be reclaimed through closed-loop systems using constructed wetlands, rainwater harvesting, and graywater recycling. Organic waste can be composted or processed in biogas digesters, turning food scraps and sewage into clean energy and fertilizer. These systems mimic nature, where no resource is ever wasted. In agriculture, we must shift toward regenerative farming methods that rebuild soil health, store carbon, and restore ecosystems. These include agroforestry, no-till farming, permaculture, and syntropic agriculture. Advanced soil monitoring sensors and AI tools can help farmers apply resources only where needed, reducing emissions and increasing productivity. Adopt intelligent technologies for environmental management. Modern technologies such as artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, and remote sensing can support ecological regeneration when used ethically. Cities can deploy sensor networks to monitor air quality, water usage, energy flows, and biodiversity in real time. This data can guide decisions that reduce waste, balance resources, and prevent environmental degradation. Drones and satellite imaging can track forest health, detect illegal deforestation, and assist in large-scale reforestation efforts. Robotic tree planting systems, coupled with ecological knowledge, can restore degraded landscapes at scale. In buildings and infrastructure, smart systems can automatically adjust heating, lighting, and water flows for maximum efficiency. These tools should remain decentralized, open source, and community-controlled to prevent surveillance capitalism and ensure they serve human and ecological needs, not profit. Revolutionize transportation and infrastructure. Transportation must be clean, inclusive, and efficient. The Solarpunk model promotes electric public transit systems powered by solar or hydrogen fuel cells, including light rail, electric buses, autonomous shuttles, and bike highways. Personal electric mobility, e.g. e-bikes, scooters, should be supported through dedicated lanes and solar charging stations. Infrastructure must also become regenerative. Roads and buildings can be made from porous materials that allow rain to soak into the ground, reducing floods and replenishing aquifers. Innovations such as solar roadways, CO2-absorbing paints, and living bridges made from tree roots turn cities into living ecosystems rather than dead infrastructure. Restore and rewild ecosystems across the planet. To transform the Earth into a forest-rich and nature-rich planet, large-scale ecosystem restoration must become a global priority. This involves reforesting lands with native trees, reintroducing biodiversity corridors, and restoring wetlands, coral reefs, and grasslands. These efforts can reverse climate change by absorbing atmospheric carbon, cooling regions, and reviving the water cycle. Technologies like mycoremediation, using fungi to clean polluted soil, phytoremediation, plant-absorbing toxins, and drone-assisted reforestation can speed up healing on degraded lands. However, restoration must center the knowledge of indigenous and local communities, who have long histories of ecological stewardship. Create equitable and regenerative economic systems. A solarpunk society must reject exploitative capitalism and embrace regenerative and cooperative economics. This involves establishing worker-owned cooperatives, community land trusts, local currencies, and mutual aid networks. Economic success should be measured not by GDP, but by well-being, ecosystem health, and community resilience. Production and trade should be localized, low-impact, and circular, reducing dependence on long global supply chains. Public goods like energy, water, housing, and transportation should be universally accessible and collectively managed. Platforms for resource sharing, such as tool libraries, makerspaces, and repair cafes, help reduce consumption while building community connections. Redesign governance and participation systems. To ensure long-term transformation, governance must become inclusive, transparent, and participatory. Power should shift from corporations and elite institutions to citizens and local communities, using tools like citizen assemblies, digital participatory budgeting, and co-governance platforms. People must have real influence over how their neighborhoods are designed, how resources are distributed, and how environmental decisions are made. Digital technologies can enhance participation, but must be designed to protect privacy and foster trust. Laws that recognize the rights of nature, indigenous sovereignty, and ecological justice are essential to creating a just and sustainable world. Foster a culture of care, creativity, and ecological consciousness. A solarpunk movement is not only about physical change, but also about cultural and emotional transformation. It requires shifting from values of extraction, domination, and competition to those of care, cooperation, balance, and creativity. Art, storytelling, music, and public ritual play essential roles in helping societies imagine and commit to a better world. Public spaces should encourage connection with each other and with nature. Festivals, educational programs, and community rituals can build a shared ecological identity, reinforcing our role as stewards of the earth. By nurturing a culture of gratitude, beauty, and respect for all life, we lay the spiritual and emotional foundation for a truly regenerative society. The path to a solarpunk world is not a single technological fix, but a comprehensive redesign of civilization. It requires deploying clean technologies not to dominate nature, but to restore and live within it. It means building cities that act as forests, economies that circulate resources endlessly, and societies that center equity and participation. The result is a planet where human and non-human life thrive together, where the air is clean, the ecosystems are flourishing, and the future is beautiful. Biocentric and regenerative urban design. Cities designed as living ecosystems. Cities are reimagined as self-sustaining ecosystems, using principles from biomimicry, permaculture, and ecological urbanism. Urban planning includes edible landscapes, pollinator corridors, wetland parks, and green roofs that support biodiversity and clean the air and water. Carbon sequestering architecture. Use of carbon-negative materials such as hempcrete, mycelium bricks, bamboo panels, and nanocellulose composites. Buildings act as carbon sinks, absorbing more CO2 during their lifetime than they emit during construction or operation. Decentralized, democratic energy systems. Energy-positive communities. Homes and districts generate more energy than they consume using solar panels, wind microturbines, solar windows, and building-integrated photovoltaics, BIPV. Energy is stored in community batteries, shared through peer-to-peer microgrids, and managed by blockchain-based smart contracts. Energy commons. Local ownership of energy infrastructure through community cooperatives. Energy as a public good, democratized, affordable, and free from corporate monopolies. Planetary rewilding and ecological restoration. Global rewilding networks. Coordinated restoration of ecosystems across urban, rural, and wild areas using drone reforestation, AI-guided land planning, and indigenous ecological stewardship. Creation of transcontinental biodiversity corridors to allow species migration and ecosystem resilience. Bioremediation and fungal infrastructure. Use of mycoremediation, fungi breaking down toxins, algae biofilters, and plant-based water purification systems to heal polluted land and water. Biological solutions replace industrial systems for cleaning air, soil, and wastewater. Circular manufacturing and biofabrication. Open-source circular economy. Products are designed for reuse, repair, and upcycling, with material passports tracking every component. Community-based makerspaces and fab labs use local biodegradable materials, like mycelium, algae, or agricultural waste, to 3D print everything from furniture to tools. Biofabricated products. Development of living materials, such as mushroom leather, algae-based packaging, or engineered wood grown from bacteria. Manufacturing mimics nature, zero waste, low energy, and fully compostable. Post-car, nature-integrated mobility. Car-free, human-scaled cities. Prioritization of walking, cycling, and electric public transit over cars. Compact, mixed-use urban neighborhoods reduce travel needs while increasing accessibility and well-being. Autonomous and solar mobility systems. Networks of self-driving electric shuttles, solar-powered bike highways, and magnetic trams for shared, low-impact transit. Technological symbiosis with nature. Digital twins of ecosystems. Use of real-time digital replicas of natural systems, rivers, forests, urban ecology, to model and manage environmental changes proactively. AI and satellite data ensure precision ecological restoration and resource stewardship. Ambient intelligence and green AI. Context-aware systems embedded in buildings and cities to optimize energy, water, and waste flows without human effort. AI applied for ecosystem monitoring, regenerative agriculture, and early warning systems for climate risks, all designed to minimize carbon footprints. Commons-based governance and economic models. Citizen assemblies and participatory planning. Local governments replaced or augmented by democratic assemblies where citizens co-design their energy, housing, food, and transit systems. Digital tools like liquid democracy and open-source urban planning platforms allow mass participation in shaping communities. Post-growth and resource-based economics. Wealth is measured by well-being, ecological health, and community resilience, not GDP. Introduction of time banks, mutual credit systems, and local currencies that reward regenerative behavior and community service. Reclaiming and reinventing rural and coastal areas. Regenerative villages and bioregional economies. Rural areas become hubs of permaculture, renewable energy, and forest restoration. Bioregional planning ensures that local economies are aligned with the natural carrying capacity of ecosystems. Floating, amphibious, and resilient settlements. Innovative housing models for coastal and climate-vulnerable areas, such as floating eco-villages, aquatic farms, and tidal-powered communities. Cultural innovation and eco-aesthetic movements. Eco-art, architecture, and public spaces. Public art and architecture that celebrates ecological processes, using natural forms, colors, and materials. Living sculptures, musical gardens, and interactive bioart installations help reconnect people with nature. Speculative design and storytelling as change tools. Use of fiction, design fiction, solarpunk novels, films, and immersive experiences to help societies envision and believe in possible futures. Storytelling not as entertainment, but as a strategic tool for cultural transformation. Healing, equity, and planetary stewardship. Climate justice and indigenous leadership. Solarpunk Society centers frontline communities, ensuring that those most impacted by environmental harm lead the way in solutions. Indigenous knowledge systems are embedded in land management, food systems, and governance models. Global solidarity networks. Creation of a planetary alliance of regenerative cities, villages, and ecosystems, where open knowledge, seeds, tools, and energy are shared freely. A culture of mutual aid and distributed resilience replaces competition and extraction. What makes these approaches innovative? They are systems-based. They redesign everything: energy, food, culture, economy as interconnected systems. They are regenerative. Instead of minimizing harm, they restore and enhance life. They are democratic and inclusive. They put decision-making and benefits in the hands of communities. They are technologically advanced yet ecologically grounded. They use cutting-edge tools to serve life, not dominate it. They are aesthetic and joyful. Beauty, creativity, and culture are central to how people experience and care for their environments. Biocentric and regenerative urban design. In a solarpunk society, cities are designed to function like living ecosystems. Buildings are constructed with carbon-sequestering materials such as hempcrete, bamboo, mycelium bricks, and nanocellulose, which absorb more carbon dioxide than they emit. Urban landscapes include vertical gardens, green roofs, edible forests, and wetland parks that provide food, clean water, biodiversity habitats, and natural climate regulation. City infrastructure prioritizes nature integration by including pollinator pathways, wildlife corridors, and recycled water systems. Streets are planted with trees and native vegetation that filter air and provide cooling. Every urban element is designed not just to minimize harm, but to actively restore and support nature, turning cities into biodiverse, healthy environments for all life. Decentralized and democratic energy systems. A key innovation in solarpunk society is the widespread use of renewable, community-owned energy systems. Rather than relying on centralized fossil fuel plants, power is generated locally using solar panels, wind turbines, geothermal heat pumps, and even solar glass windows. Buildings are not just consumers of energy. They become energy positive, producing more electricity than they use. Electricity is stored using advanced battery systems, hydrogen storage, or thermal batteries, and shared through smart microgrids that allow neighborhoods to exchange power efficiently. These grids are governed by the community, not corporations, making energy access equitable, affordable, and democratic. Planetary rewilding and ecological restoration. A solarpunk society commits to healing the Earth's ecosystems at scale. Degraded lands are reforested using drone-assisted tree planting, AI-guided land management, and indigenous ecological knowledge. Cities and countryside areas are reconnected with green corridors that allow wildlife to move freely, increasing biodiversity and ecosystem resilience. Polluted environments are cleaned using bioremediation technologies, such as fungi that digest toxins, plants that extract heavy metals, and algae that filter water and absorb O2. Restoration becomes a central feature of all development, ensuring that human presence contributes to ecological regeneration rather than destruction. Circular manufacturing and local biofabrication. In solarpunk economies, waste is eliminated by adopting a circular economy in which all materials are reused, recycled, or composted. Products are designed with material passports that make every component traceable, recyclable, and reparable. Local production hubs, makerspaces, and fabrication labs allow communities to manufacture goods on demand using 3D printing and biodegradable materials like mycelium, algae, and agricultural byproducts. This decentralization reduces reliance on global supply chains and lowers emissions, while also increasing local resilience and economic sovereignty. It fosters a culture of repair, reuse, and local craftsmanship, supported by open-source design libraries and cooperative innovation networks. Post-car, nature-friendly mobility systems. Transportation in a solarpunk world is clean, efficient, and integrated with nature. Cities are designed for pedestrians, cyclists, and public transit users, not cars. Streets prioritize safe, shaded walkways, like highways and electric rail systems powered by solar energy. Advanced transportation networks use autonomous electric shuttles, hydrogen buses, and solar charging stations. These systems reduce traffic, pollution, and noise while improving public health and accessibility. In place of asphalt and highways, cities are connected by greenways and regenerative infrastructure that supports ecosystem health. Technological symbiosis with nature. Rather than dominating the natural world, Solarpunk technologies are designed to collaborate with ecosystems. Artificial intelligence, IoT sensors, and remote sensing satellites are used to monitor forests, farms, water systems, and urban ecosystems in real time. These tools help detect pollution, prevent ecosystem collapse, and inform precision restoration. Cities and landscapes are equipped with digital twins, real-time digital models that help communities understand and manage environmental flows, such as water, energy, and carbon. These systems are governed by communities and designed to maximize ecological and social benefit, not corporate profit. Commons-based governance and participatory design. In solarpunk societies, decision-making is local, inclusive, and participatory. Communities govern their neighborhoods, energy systems, food production, and development through citizen assemblies, digital democracy platforms, and collaborative planning tools. Land, housing, and infrastructure are often managed as commons, shared resources governed by community rules. This model ensures that development aligns with local needs and ecological realities. It also empowers historically marginalized communities to lead the transition and share in the benefits of sustainability. Regenerative rural development and bioregional planning. Outside cities, solarpunk villages thrive using permaculture, agroecology, and renewable energy. Rural areas become hubs for local food production, forest stewardship, and ecological knowledge. Instead of being left behind, they are revitalized through land-based economies and bioregional cooperation. Planning is guided by the natural boundaries of ecosystems, watersheds, forests, river systems, rather than arbitrary political borders. This ensures that development stays within planetary boundaries and respects ecological cycles. Cultural transformation through art and storytelling. A solarpunk society is as much a cultural shift as a technological one. Public art, design, and storytelling play vital roles in cultivating emotional connection to nature, hope for the future, and imagination of alternatives to extractive civilization. Schools, museums, and public spaces nurture eco-literacy, creativity, and community celebration. Fiction, film, music, and visual arts imagine worlds where people live beautifully and responsibly on Earth. These stories are not utopian fantasies but guiding visions that shape the choices of designers, engineers, architects, and policymakers. Climate justice and planetary stewardship. At its core, the solarpunk movement is about justice, equity, and healing. It centers the leadership of indigenous peoples, frontline communities, and young people who are disproportionately affected by climate change. It ensures that the benefits of sustainable technology and ecological regeneration are shared fairly across all societies. Solarpunk is rooted in a deep ethic of planetary stewardship, where humans are not separate from nature, but part of its web of life. It promotes policies that protect the rights of nature, dismantle extractive systems, and create regenerative pathways for future generations. The most innovative approaches to building a solarpunk society combine ecological regeneration, advanced clean technology, and democratic participation in a holistic system that supports all life. These strategies do not simply reduce harm. They actively restore ecosystems, empower communities, and reimagine culture, economy, and governance. They rely on cooperation, open-source knowledge, and creative vision to build a future that is not only livable, but thriving, joyful, and resilient. Hypothetical advanced alien technologies for sustainability. While there is no confirmed evidence of alien technologies, many scientists and theorists speculate on what an ultra-advanced extraterrestrial civilization might use. These ideas are based on the Kardashev scale, which measures a civilization's energy use, and concepts from quantum physics, general relativity, and advanced materials science. Zero-point energy, ZPE, extraction. Concept harnesses the quantum vacuum energy that exists even in empty space. Sustainability impact provides unlimited clean energy without fuel, emissions, or waste. Theoretical status supported by quantum field theory, though not yet technologically feasible for humans. Room temperature superconductors and exotic matter. Concept Materials that allow perfect energy transmission or enable anti-gravity manipulation. Sustainability impact. Power grids without loss. Ultra-efficient magnetic transportation, hover systems. Possible gravity-neutral building and transportation systems. Status. Some progress with high-temperature superconductors and theorized metamaterials from UFO sightings. Gravitational or inertial propulsion, warp or anti-gravity drives. Concept. Propulsion systems that manipulate space-time or inertia to move craft without propellant. Sustainability impact. Eliminate combustion-based transport systems. Enable energy-efficient interplanetary travel and resource extraction without earthly pollution. Theoretical basis. Based on Einstein's general relativity and speculative concepts like Alcubierre warp drives or inertial dampening. Molecular nanotechnology and programmable matter. Concept. Advanced atomically precise manufacturing, self-assembling materials and devices. Sustainability impact. Full recycling and reconfiguration of materials. Clean, decentralized manufacturing. Extremely efficient use of planetary resources, zero-waste ecosystems. Status. Related to current nanotechnology research, but at a theoretical alien level, it could be fully autonomous. Planetary engineering, geobiotechno-integration. Concept. An advanced civilization might be able to integrate technology directly into the planet's biosphere. Sustainability impact. Planet-wide climate control, pollution cleanup, and biosphere regeneration. Ecosystems restored through automated biological and atmospheric adjustments. Human-developed or theoretical advanced space propulsion technologies for sustainability. Many advanced propulsion technologies being developed or theorized today could support a solarpunk future by reducing reliance on Earth's resources, creating clean off-world industries, opening up abundant off-planet energy sources. Ion propulsion. How it works: uses electric fields to accelerate ions to produce thrust. Sustainability benefits. Extremely efficient, uses very little fuel. Ideal for long-duration missions or transporting raw materials from space. Use case. Already used on NASA's Dawn mission, promising for asteroid mining and solar-powered spacecraft. Nuclear thermal propulsion, NTP. How it works: heats hydrogen using a nuclear reactor and expels it for thrust. Sustainability benefits. Cuts interplanetary travel time by half, reducing costs and radiation exposure. Could be combined with solar systems to mine resources from space, preserving Earth's ecosystems. Solar sails and light propulsion. How it works: uses the pressure of sunlight or laser beams to push large reflective sails. Sustainability benefits. Requires no fuel at all. Allows very long-term, clean propulsion, ideal for satellites, deep space probes, or solar-powered factories. Use case. The Planetary Society's LightSail project and Breakthrough Starshot. Fusion propulsion. How it works: uses controlled nuclear fusion reactions like in the Sun to power a spacecraft. Sustainability benefits. Incredibly energy-dense and clean. May eventually lead to fusion reactors for Earth that provide almost limitless clean energy. Projects. Direct fusion drive, Princeton Plasma Physics Lab, helicity injection drives. Antimatter propulsion, theoretical. How it works: matter and antimatter annihilate on contact, releasing huge amounts of energy. Sustainability benefits. 100% efficient energy-to-thrust conversion. Could allow clean energy generation and propulsion at scales never seen before. Challenges. Antimatter is hard and expensive to produce in useful amounts. Containment is extremely difficult. Space elevators and orbital launch systems. How it works: uses a tethered structure from Earth to orbit or launches materials using electromagnetic catapults. Sustainability benefits. Eliminates the need for rocket fuel and reduces space launch costs by over 90%. Makes solar power satellites, asteroid mining, and space factories economically viable, shifting extraction and industry away from Earth. How these technologies could promote sustainability on Earth. Alien-like energy systems. Unlimited clean power. No emissions, decentralized use. Advanced propulsion. Clean interplanetary logistics, mining and transport. Nanotech and molecular control. Zero waste production, material reuse, ecological design, planetary engineering, climate stability, ecosystem regeneration, pollution reversal, space industry infrastructure, reduces terrestrial resource extraction and pollution, solar sails and orbit power, powers Earth from space without pollution. Whether imagined from alien civilizations or built through human ingenuity, advanced space and energy technologies offer profound opportunities for planetary sustainability. If we use these tools with ecological wisdom and equity in mind, they can help us regenerate Earth's biosphere, transition away from destructive industries, and unlock a clean, abundant future for all life. A solarpunk society that incorporates these advanced systems could become both a haven for nature and a hub for interplanetary harmony. Adopting a resource-based and needs-based economy. In a moneyless solarpunk society, the economy would no longer revolve around currency, markets, or profits. Instead, it would be structured as a resource-based economy, RBE, or needs-based economy, where goods and services are produced and distributed according to actual needs and ecological limits. Core principles. Universal access. Everyone has guaranteed access to food, shelter, energy, water, education, healthcare, and meaningful work. Resource allocation by needs and ecosystem limits. Production is planned based on ecological carrying capacity and human well-being, using real-time data from environmental monitoring systems. Automation and technology-assisted production. AI, robotics, and decentralized manufacturing ensure that human labor focuses on creativity, care work, and ecosystem stewardship, not repetitive labor. Local and decentralized production of goods and services. Without money, communities would rely on decentralized, open-source manufacturing and agriculture systems. Strategies. Fab labs and makerspaces, community-based production hubs equipped with 3D printers, CNC machines, and biomanufacturing tools for making clothes, tools, and daily goods from locally available renewable materials. Permaculture and regenerative agriculture, local food systems based on agroecology, food forests, aquaponics, and syntropic farming to ensure year-round food security without industrial agriculture. Community energy grids, locally produced and managed renewable energy using solar, wind, microhydro, and biogas systems, supported by microgrids and community battery storage. Shared ownership and commons-based resource management. All essential resources, land, housing, water, forests, infrastructure, and energy systems would become commons, meaning they are collectively owned and democratically managed by communities. Implementation. Community land trusts. Land is held in trust for perpetual public benefit. Energy and water commons. Energy and water infrastructure is community-controlled, ensuring universal and equitable access. Tool libraries and sharing platforms. Tools, vehicles, appliances, and knowledge are shared freely or through cooperative stewardship systems. Digital commons. Open-source knowledge platforms provide free access to education, designs, scientific research, and software. Participatory governance and direct democracy. In a moneyless solarpunk society, decision-making is decentralized, participatory, and inclusive, using tools like citizen assemblies, consensus decision-making, and digital participatory platforms. Features. Local councils and assemblies. Regularly held community gatherings where decisions about resource use, infrastructure, education, and ecological restoration are made. Federated networks. Local councils link with neighboring councils for regional and global coordination, similar to bioregional governance models. Liquid democracy tools. Citizens can delegate or reclaim their decision-making power on specific issues, supported by transparent, open-source digital platforms. Regenerative infrastructure and built environments. Cities, villages, and infrastructure would be designed following regenerative design principles, making human settlements energy-positive, zero-waste, and biodiversity-rich. Design elements. Passive solar and biophilic architecture. Buildings designed for natural lighting, ventilation, and temperature regulation, surrounded by green spaces. Living infrastructure. Green roofs, vertical gardens, and constructed wetlands integrated into buildings and public spaces. Circular water and waste systems. Greywater recycling, composting toilets, and biogas digesters process waste and return nutrients to the land. Mobility without fossil fuels. Walkable neighborhoods, bike highways, electric public transit, and cargo sharing systems. Knowledge sharing, open technology, and peer-to-peer learning. Education, science, and technology will become open access and collaborative, empowering everyone to contribute to society's well-being and sustainability. Methods: open source technology libraries, free access to all tools, blueprints, codes, and designs for renewable energy systems, manufacturing tools, and ecological restoration methods. Community learning hubs, peer-to-peer education spaces offering training in ecology, engineering, permaculture, and arts without cost or credential barriers. Digital knowledge commons, online platforms that store and distribute collective knowledge for agriculture, health, engineering, and governance. Post-scarcity through automation and technological symbiosis. By applying automation, AI, robotics, and advanced materials science ethically, essential goods and services could be produced with minimal human labor, freeing people to engage in creative, social, and ecological pursuits. Technological enablers. Autonomous agriculture, robotic planting, weeding, and harvesting for local food production. Recyclable 3D printing, using biodegradable or recycled materials for manufacturing. Automated renewable energy grids, AI-driven energy balancing systems that self-optimize for demand and ecosystem limits. Ecological restoration and planetary rewilding. Human settlements would integrate with large-scale efforts to rewild degraded ecosystems, restore biodiversity, and re-establish natural cycles. Actions: urban and rural reforestation, planting native trees and establishing food forests. Pollution cleanup with bioremediation, using fungi, algae, and bacteria to detoxify soil and water. Wildlife corridors, connecting habitats to allow animal migration and genetic diversity. Planetary stewardship projects, communities collaborating across regions to heal rivers, oceans, and atmospheric systems. Cultural and social transformation. Beyond physical infrastructure, a moneyless solarpunk society would require a cultural shift toward mutual aid, collective care, and ecological consciousness. Social systems. Gift economy, goods, services, and care freely offered according to ability and need. Time banking. Individuals contribute time-based services like teaching, caregiving, repairing, and receive services in return. Community rituals and festivals. Celebrations that honor the seasons, biodiversity, and communal achievements, strengthening social cohesion. Global collaboration without capitalism. While local autonomy is critical, these societies would form global networks of solidarity, exchanging knowledge, resources, and labor without money or profit motives. Global systems. Open knowledge networks. Cross-border sharing of ecological data, designs, seeds, and technologies. Planetary restoration alliances. Cooperative projects to address climate change, biodiversity loss, and ecosystem degradation at the planetary level. Intercultural solidarity. Empowering indigenous, marginalized, and frontline communities globally as equal partners and leaders in ecological regeneration. A moneyless, extremely sustainable, regenerative, and equitable solarpunk society would operate through a needs-based, common-centered, technologically assisted, and ecologically grounded system. It would blend high technology with deep ecology, collective governance with local autonomy, and global cooperation with bioregional focus. Human labor would shift from profit-driven work to creative expression, ecosystem care, scientific discovery, education, and community building. The social fabric will be woven with mutual aid, open knowledge, and collective decision-making, making life fulfilling, joyful, and connected to the living earth. Adopting a resource-based economy rooted in ecological limits. Instead of relying on money, markets, and profit, this society would operate on a resource-based economy where resources are allocated according to human needs and ecosystem health. Production and consumption would be determined by real-time environmental data, ensuring that human activities remain within planetary boundaries. Every person would have guaranteed access to the basic necessities of life, such as food, clean water, shelter, energy, education, healthcare, and cultural participation. Goods and services would be distributed based on collective decision-making processes that prioritize both human well-being and ecological regeneration. Decentralized and localized production systems. To eliminate the need for global supply chains and reduce environmental impacts, manufacturing and food production would become decentralized and locally managed. Communities would operate open-source fabrication hubs, such as makerspaces and local manufacturing centers, equipped with 3D printers, CNC machines, and biomanufacturing tools. Agriculture would shift entirely to regenerative methods, such as permaculture, agroforestry, aquaponics, and syntropic farming, ensuring year-round food production without depleting the soil or damaging ecosystems. Materials used in production would be biodegradable, recyclable, and locally sourced, reducing the need for resource extraction and long-distance transportation. Commons-based resource management. All essential resources, land, water, energy, housing, infrastructure, and technology, will be managed as commons, collectively owned and governed by the community. This means that no individual or corporation would own critical resources for private profit. Community members would participate in resource councils that oversee how materials and land are used, ensuring fair distribution, environmental protection, and long-term ecological resilience. Community land trusts, energy cooperatives, and shared infrastructure systems would replace private ownership models. Participatory governance and direct democracy. In this society, decision-making will be direct, transparent, and participatory. Communities would hold regular citizen assemblies and use consensus-building processes to make decisions about local production, environmental stewardship, resource use, and infrastructure development. Decisions at larger scales, regional, national, or global, will be handled through federations of local councils, linked in networks that practice bioregional governance. Digital platforms, designed for security, privacy, and accessibility, would allow for real-time participation in governance from anywhere. Technology as a tool for ecological regeneration. Technology would not serve corporate interests but instead be developed and used for the restoration of ecosystems, reduction of human labor burdens, and improvement of quality of life. Renewable energy systems like solar, wind, geothermal, and biogas would power homes, transportation, and manufacturing centers. AI and machine learning would optimize energy distribution, water use, and material flows to avoid waste. Robotics and automation would handle labor-intensive tasks in agriculture, construction, and recycling, freeing humans to focus on education, creativity, community care, and ecosystem management. Circular material flows and zero-waste systems. A foundational feature of this society would be a fully circular economy, where all materials are continuously reused, repaired, repurposed, or composted. Products would be designed for durability, modularity, and easy disassembly, making them easy to repair or recycle. Food waste and organic matter will be converted into compost or biogas, closing nutrient loops and regenerating soils. Water systems would rely on gray water recycling, rainwater harvesting, and natural filtration using constructed wetlands and biofilters. Post-scarcity through automation and open-source design. Advanced technologies like 3D printing, robotic manufacturing, and automated agriculture would produce most goods and services with minimal resource input and human labor. All technological designs, blueprints, and scientific knowledge would be available through open-source platforms, ensuring universal access to innovation and solutions. This post-scarcity model would remove the artificial scarcity created by capitalist markets and allow communities to meet their needs without financial transactions. Ecological restoration and planetary rewilding. A core mission of this society would be healing the planet's ecosystems. Large-scale projects would focus on reforestation, wetland restoration, soil regeneration, and pollution cleanup using methods like mycoremediation, fungi-based remediation, phytoremediation, plant-based detoxification, and drone-assisted rewilding. Urban areas would integrate green corridors, living roofs, food forests, and wildlife sanctuaries, turning cities into self-sustaining, biodiverse habitats that support both humans and non-human life. Universal access to education, culture, and well-being. Education in a moneyless solarpunk society would be free, lifelong, and accessible to all, focusing on ecology, cooperation, problem-solving, and creative expression. Communities would have spaces for art, music, storytelling, and public festivals, fostering a culture of care, learning, and collective celebration. Healthcare, mental wellness, and social support systems would be considered fundamental human rights, provided freely to everyone as part of the community's care infrastructure. Global solidarity networks and planetary cooperation. Although communities would manage their own resources locally, they would be part of a global solidarity network that shares knowledge, technologies, seeds, biodiversity resources, and restoration strategies. This network would coordinate planetary-scale ecological projects, such as ocean regeneration, climate stabilization, and wildlife protection. Global communication and collaboration platforms would help prevent ecological harm in one region from spilling into others, making planetary health a shared responsibility of all communities. Creating a moneyless, extremely sustainable, regenerative, and equitable solarpunk society would involve a deep reorganization of how humans produce, govern, and relate to each other and the planet. It would mean replacing competition and profit-seeking with mutual aid, common stewardship, ecological balance, and community-based decision-making. This future society would operate within Earth's ecological limits, ensuring that all people have their needs met while restoring damaged ecosystems, enhancing biodiversity, and building strong, participatory, and creative communities. Foundational principles for a global solarpunk society. Ecological regeneration. Repair ecosystems, biodiversity, soils, oceans, and climate stability. Equity and justice. Ensure fair access to resources, education, health, participation, and decision-making for all people. Decentralization and local resilience. Empower local communities while coordinating globally. Circular and regenerative economy. Eliminate waste and pollution, circulate materials, regenerate natural systems. Technology for ecological and social good. Only deploy technologies that increase sustainability, equity, and resilience. Participatory governance. Emphasize citizen assemblies, deliberative democracy, and indigenous leadership alongside modern governance tools. Core technologies and systems for implementation. Energy transition. 100% clean, decentralized, and resilient. Solar PV, wind, tidal, geothermal, small-scale hydro, and most molecular solar thermal storage. Energy storage, advanced batteries, lithium, sodium, iron air, flow batteries, hydrogen, compressed air, and thermal storage. Microgrids, peer-to-peer energy trading, and community energy cooperatives. Artificial photosynthesis and solar fuels, methanol, hydrogen from sunlight and CO2. Carbon and pollution drawdown technologies. Direct air capture, DAC, and BECCS, bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. Enhanced rock weathering, biochar, and ocean alkalinity enhancement. Algae-based systems and artificial leaf technologies for CO2 capture and fuel production. Closed-loop waste-to-resource systems turning industrial, agricultural, and municipal waste into clean energy, fertilizers, fuels, and building materials. Regenerative agriculture and food systems. Agroecology, food forests, and permaculture. Urban vertical farming, aquaponics, and hydroponics. Precision fermentation for proteins and fats without animal agriculture. Soil carbon sequestration and mycorrhizal networks restoration. Localized food sovereignty models to reduce food miles and improve nutrition. Circular economy, manufacturing, and material innovation. Full material lifecycle design, biodegradable materials, nanocellulose, mushroom mycelium composites, and green concrete alternatives. Industrial symbiosis, using one industry's waste as another's input. 3D printing using recycled materials and low-impact feedstocks. Localized maker spaces for community manufacturing. Urban design and infrastructure, biophilic and climate-positive cities. Green roofs, living walls, rewilded urban corridors, and car-free zones. Sponge cities for flood management. District-level renewable heating/cooling grids. Passive solar architecture and advanced building materials, like hempcrete and aerogels. Water and waste regeneration. Closed-loop water systems, rainwater harvesting, greywater recycling, atmospheric water generators. Distributed sewage treatment with nutrient recovery, like biogas and struvite production. Zero-waste systems, circular material flows in cities and industries. Health education and social equity infrastructure. Universal basic services, free education, healthcare, clean water, housing, and food. Trauma-informed community design to heal social and environmental injustices. Access to lifelong learning with emphasis on ecological literacy, civic participation, and regenerative skills. Governance and decision-making structures. Participatory democracy, regular citizen assemblies, community councils, and deliberative forums. Platform cooperatives, digital governance tools like decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, for managing resources and funds. Indigenous leadership integration, legal and social recognition of indigenous land rights, knowledge systems, and governance. Global local governance, global small local councils empowered but with global coordination hubs for climate, biodiversity, and equity. Economic transformation, beyond GDP. Post-growth and donut economics, prioritize human well-being within planetary boundaries. Regenerative finance, redirect capital flows toward ecosystem restoration, renewable energy, social infrastructure, and just transition initiatives. Universal Basic Income, UBI, and/or Universal Basic Assets, UBA, ensure financial security and resource access for all. Social and Solidarity Economy, promote cooperatives, commons-based ownership, and mutual aid networks. Cultural and mindset shift. Storytelling and media promoting solarpunk futures. Education focused on ecological stewardship, global citizenship, and systems thinking. Community arts, music, and cultural festivals to build social cohesion. Psychological decolonization from consumerist and extractivist worldviews. Implementation stages. Demonstration projects. Launch solarpunk pilot communities, eco-villages, and regenerative city districts as proof-of-concept models. Policy mobilization. Advocate for climate-positive policies, Green New Deals, and social safety nets at national and international levels. Mass adoption technologies. Scale low-cost renewable energy, regenerative food systems, and circular manufacturing globally. Global governance shifts. Restructure international institutions, UN, WTO, IMF, to prioritize climate justice, biodiversity, and human rights. Cultural movement building. Support global solarpunk culture through education, arts, digital storytelling, and youth movements. Global collaboration mechanisms. Earth Climate and Biodiversity Restoration Treaty, legally binding agreement among nations. Global Climate Corps/Ecological Peacekeeping Forces. Youth and adult teams train in reforestation, renewable energy installation, permaculture, and disaster response. Open science and technology sharing. Global open-source platforms for green technology, data, and methodologies. Decentralized global commons. Shared planetary resources, atmosphere, oceans, biodiversity, managed for public good, not private profit. Potential outcomes over time. 5 years. Global network of solarpunk cities. Universal basic services established in many countries. Emissions drop sharply. 10 years. Half of global energy is renewable. Ecosystems rapidly regenerating. New regenerative economic models dominate. 20 years. Global carbon drawdown at scale. Climate stabilized. Biodiversity restored. Mass poverty eliminated. 50 years. Regenerative civilization flourishing. Human well-being and planetary health optimized. Resilient against future crises. Launching a global solarpunk society requires a synergistic blend of advanced clean technologies, regenerative ecological practices, deep social reforms, economic restructuring, and cultural evolution. It's not just a technological challenge, but a human, ethical, and ecological one. This would be the most ambitious and hopeful transformation in human history, and it's technologically feasible today. What's needed is political will, global solidarity, and grassroots action across every sector. Building the regenerative solarpunk civilization, a roadmap to solving global crises. The urgency for a new civilization model. The world today faces a convergence of existential crises, climate change, biodiversity loss, resource depletion, growing economic inequality, social fragmentation, and political instability. The dominant extractive, consumption-driven, and fossil-fueled industrial model has pushed ecosystems beyond their limits and marginalized billions of people. But within this global challenge lies an extraordinary opportunity: the emergence of a regenerative, equitable, and technologically advanced solarpunk society. Rooted in ecological balance, social justice, circular economics, and participatory democracy, this society envisions a future where humanity thrives in harmony with the Earth. The solarpunk vision is no longer just speculative fiction or activism. It can be a practical roadmap for global transformation. Below is a detailed framework for how we can launch this civilization-scale project. Foundational principles of the solarpunk society. Ecological regeneration. Restore and heal damaged ecosystems, forests, wetlands, oceans, soils, and the atmosphere. Shift from sustainability, maintaining the status quo, to active regeneration. Social and economic equity. Guarantee universal access to essential services, clean water, energy, food, education, and healthcare. Address historical injustices, including colonization, environmental racism, and economic exclusion. Decentralization with global coordination. Empower local communities while fostering global cooperation on shared planetary goals. Use distributed governance models to decentralize power. Technological humanism. Deploy technology only if it enhances ecological balance, social welfare, and democratic participation. Open source innovation and technology sharing to prevent corporate monopolization of critical systems. Participatory governance. Transition to community-centered decision-making, citizen assemblies, participatory budgeting, and transparent governance. Core systems and technologies driving the transition. Renewable energy revolution, powering the future sustainably. A solarpunk society will be powered by a diversified, decentralized, and renewable energy mix, including solar photovoltaics and concentrated solar power, CSP, offshore and onshore wind turbines, tidal, wave, and geothermal energy, advanced storage technologies, lithium, sodium, and iron-air batteries, flow batteries, green hydrogen storage, thermal and gravity storage, microgrids and peer-to-peer energy markets, local communities generating and trading power autonomously. Emerging technologies like molecular solar thermal energy storage, MOST, and artificial photosynthesis will allow solar energy capture and release on demand. Climate stabilization and pollution reversal. To reverse climate change, we must combine emissions reduction with active removal of atmospheric greenhouse gases and pollutants. Direct air capture, DAC, extract CO2 from the atmosphere and store it underground or convert it into products. Enhanced weathering and biochar application. Capture carbon in soils and rocks. Ocean alkalinity enhancement. Stabilize ocean pH, and absorb atmospheric CO2. Artificial leaf technology. Use solar-driven systems to convert CO2 into fuels and useful chemicals. Circular industrial processes. Transform CO2, NOx, SOx, and other pollutants into feedstocks for industry. Regenerative agriculture and food systems. Global food systems must move from being a driver of emissions and biodiversity loss to becoming a powerful carbon sink and community resource. Agroecology and permaculture mimic natural ecosystems to boost soil health and biodiversity. Agroforestry and silvopasture integrate trees with crops and livestock for multi-layered productivity. Urban vertical farming, aquaponics, and hydroponics reduce land use while increasing food access. Precision fermentation and cellular agriculture produce proteins, dairy, and fats with minimal land and water use. Soil regeneration apply compost, biochar, and promote mycorrhizal fungi to rebuild soil carbon and fertility. Circular economy and materials revolution. The solarpunk economy is zero waste and circular by design, eliminating pollution and resource depletion. Designed for disassembly and recyclability, products made for full recovery and reuse. Biodegradable materials, nanocellulose, hemp-based bioplastics, and mushroom mycelium materials replace petrochemicals. Industrial symbiosis. Waste from one industry becomes the input for another, e.g., waste heat, CO2 for algae biofuel production. Localized fabrication. 3D printing hubs and makerspaces reduce the need for global supply chains. Biophilic and climate-positive urban design. Cities must become living ecosystems, merging nature with infrastructure. Green roofs, living walls, and urban forests. Sponge city technologies. Manage water cycles to prevent flooding and drought. Car-free zones and active transport infrastructure. Prioritize walking, cycling, and electric public transit. Net zero and net positive buildings. Use materials like hempcrete, rammed earth, and aerogels for energy efficiency. Wildlife corridors and green belts allow species movement even within dense urban areas. Water and waste regeneration systems. Water is life. A solarpunk society ensures closed-loop water systems. Rainwater harvesting and greywater recycling. Constructed wetlands for natural sewage treatment. Atmospheric water generators for arid regions. Nutrient recovery from wastewater, e.g., phosphorus, nitrogen. Zero waste models. Biological waste turned into compost, biogas, or building materials. Universal health, education, and social equity systems. A just society must invest in human well-being and capability building. Universal basic services, UBS, free access to education, healthcare, housing, and clean water. Universal basic income, UBI, or universal basic assets, UBA, guarantee economic security. Lifelong education, focus on sustainability, regenerative design, systems thinking, and civic engagement. Indigenous knowledge integration, respect, and include indigenous ecological stewardship models. Governance for a regenerative civilization. participatory and decentralized governance models, citizens' assemblies and community councils, deliberative democracy, inclusive decision-making beyond electoral politics, digital direct democracy platforms, blockchain or open-source tools for community voting and budgeting, Earth Commons treaty governance, manage the atmosphere, oceans, and biodiversity as shared global resources, legal and institutional innovations, rights of nature laws, legal personhood for rivers, forests, and ecosystems, ecocide laws, make large-scale environmental destruction an international crime, indigenous and local land rights protections, prevent land grabbing and eco-colonialism, economic transformation beyond GDP. Solarpunk economics prioritize well-being, resilience, and planetary health over endless growth. Donut economics framework, balance social foundations and ecological ceilings. Regenerative finance and green bonds, redirect investment into green infrastructure, ecosystem restoration, and social programs. Cooperative ownership models, transition from shareholder to stakeholder economy. Time banking and local currencies, support community resilience and local value exchanges. Global carbon dividend, direct payments to citizens from pollution taxes or carbon revenues. Implementation stages, pilot communities. Establish Solarpunk demonstration neighborhoods, eco-villages, and transition towns globally. Policy reforms. Implement Green New Deals, climate justice legislation, and regenerative development plans at local and national levels. Mass deployment of solutions. Scale renewable energy, regenerative agriculture, circular manufacturing, and zero-waste systems globally. Global treaties and institutions. Create new international frameworks for climate action, biodiversity restoration, and global social equity. Cultural mainstreaming. Embed Solarpunk narratives in education, arts, media, and social movements to build global public support. Global collaboration platforms. To succeed at scale, international collaboration mechanisms must emerge. Global Solarpunk network. Facilitate knowledge exchange, technology sharing, and joint initiatives. Earth Restoration Corps. Train millions of youth and adults in reforestation, clean energy, disaster response, and regenerative farming. Open source tech commons. Create global repositories of green technologies, blueprints, and data. Global Climate Reparations Fund. Wealthy nations and polluters finance global just transition efforts. Long-term vision, outcomes over 50 years. By 2030. Emissions halved, mass adoption of clean energy, millions employed in green jobs, ecosystems recovering. By 2040. Carbon drawdown technologies scaling, circular economy dominant, poverty drastically reduced, biodiversity bouncing back. By 2050 and beyond. Climate stabilized, human well-being maximized within planetary boundaries, a thriving regenerative civilization becomes the global norm. The transition to a solarpunk civilization is not just a dream. It is a strategic, systems-based response to the polycrises of our time. This future demands technological innovation, cultural transformation, economic restructuring, and most importantly, a global movement of people demanding and creating change. Humanity now stands at a crossroads. We can choose collapse, or we can choose to build a world that is regenerative, equitable, decentralized, biophilic, and just. The technologies exist. The knowledge exists. The next step is collective action. Launching the most advanced, equitable, sustainable, and regenerative solarpunk society, a detailed roadmap to solving global crises. Why humanity needs a civilizational shift. Human civilization is at a critical crossroads. The world today faces an unprecedented convergence of global crises. Climate change is accelerating at an alarming pace, causing extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and ecosystem collapse. Biodiversity loss is reaching mass extinction levels, threatening the balance of life on Earth. Resource depletion, such as soil degradation, freshwater scarcity, and dwindling fossil fuel reserves, poses serious risks to food, energy, and water security. Meanwhile, global economic inequality continues to widen. Billions of people lack access to basic needs like clean water, education, healthcare, and secure housing. Social and political unrest are growing as people become increasingly disillusioned with extractive economies, environmental destruction, and failing governance systems. In this context of multiple interconnected crises, humanity has the opportunity and the urgent necessity to fundamentally redesign its systems of energy, economy, governance, technology, culture, and ecology. One of the most hopeful and visionary pathways emerging from this crisis is the concept of a solarpunk society. A solarpunk society represents a regenerative, equitable, technologically advanced, and ecologically harmonious civilization. It is a future where human well-being, planetary health, social justice, and cultural diversity thrive together. It offers a roadmap for solving global societal, environmental, and economic problems. Foundational principles of a regenerative solarpunk society. Before taking practical steps towards implementation, it is essential to define the core principles that will guide the creation of this society. These principles ensure that the solarpunk vision remains aligned with ecological and social regeneration. Ecological regeneration. A solarpunk society prioritizes the active restoration and healing of ecosystems. This includes reforesting degraded landscapes, regenerating soils, reviving ocean health, and stabilizing the climate. The goal is to rebuild the Earth's life support systems while enhancing biodiversity and ecological resilience. Social and economic equity. Equity is non-negotiable. Every individual must have fair access to the resources and opportunities needed for a dignified and fulfilling life. This means universal access to clean water, nutritious food, education, healthcare, renewable energy, and secure housing. It also involves correcting historic injustices, including those related to colonization, environmental racism, and economic exploitation. Decentralization with global coordination. Power and decision-making authority must be decentralized to empower local communities. However, coordination at the global level remains essential for addressing transboundary challenges like climate change and biodiversity loss. This balance between local autonomy and global solidarity forms the backbone of effective governance in a solarpunk society. Technological humanism. Technology is not inherently good or bad. Its value depends on how it is applied. In a solarpunk society, technology must only be deployed if it enhances ecological health, social welfare, and democratic participation. Open-source platforms, technology sharing, and decentralized innovation prevent corporate monopolization and ensure equitable access. Participatory governance. People must have a direct voice in the decisions that affect their lives and environments. Participatory governance models like citizens' assemblies, community councils, and participatory budgeting replace top-down, centralized political systems. Transparent governance ensures accountability and builds public trust. Core technologies and systems for implementation. Renewable energy transition, powering the future sustainably. Transitioning to 100% renewable energy is a central pillar of the solarpunk vision. The energy system must be clean, decentralized, resilient, and equitable. Solarpunk societies will deploy a mix of solar photovoltaics, wind turbines, tidal and wave energy systems, geothermal power, and small-scale hydroelectric plants. Energy storage technologies such as lithium-ion batteries, sodium-ion batteries, iron-air batteries, flow batteries, and hydrogen storage will ensure stable and reliable power supply. Innovative solutions like molecular solar thermal energy storage, MOST, and artificial photosynthesis will enable the capture and release of solar energy on demand. Community microgrids and peer-to-peer energy trading platforms will empower local energy autonomy and resilience against grid failures. Climate stabilization and pollution drawdown. To restore climate balance, the solarpunk society will deploy both emissions reduction strategies and active atmospheric carbon removal technologies. Direct air capture (DAC) facilities will extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere for underground storage or conversion into usable materials. Enhanced rock weathering and biochar application will lock carbon into soils and mineral formations. Ocean alkalinity enhancement will stabilize marine pH levels and absorb additional atmospheric CO2. Artificial leaf technologies will utilize sunlight to convert CO2 into clean fuels and industrial feedstocks. Circular industrial processes will transform pollutants like CO2, NOx, and SOx into valuable resources for manufacturing. Regenerative agriculture and food systems. Food production must transition from being a major driver of emissions and biodiversity loss to becoming a force for ecological regeneration and social well-being. Solarpunk food systems will be based on agroecology, permaculture, agroforestry, and silvopasture practices. These approaches integrate crops, trees, and livestock in a way that builds soil health, enhances biodiversity, and sequesters carbon. Urban vertical farming, hydroponics, and aquaponics will reduce land use and bring food production closer to consumers. Precision fermentation and cellular agriculture will provide proteins and fats without the need for industrial-scale animal farming. Soil regeneration practices, including composting, biochar application, and support for mycorrhizal fungal networks, will rebuild soil fertility and carbon content. Circular economy and sustainable manufacturing. A solarpunk society operates on a zero-waste, circular economy model. Every material is designed for reuse, recycling, or natural degradation. Products will be designed for disassembly and full recyclability. Biodegradable materials like nanocellulose, hemp-based bioplastics, and mushroom mycelium composites will replace petrochemical-based plastics. Industrial symbiosis networks will ensure that the waste of one industry becomes the raw material for another. Localized makerspaces and 3D printing hubs will enable communities to produce their own goods with recycled materials, reducing dependency on global supply chains. Biophilic and climate-positive urban design. Urban areas must become ecosystems in their own right, seamlessly integrating natural systems with human infrastructure. Cities will feature green roofs, living walls, urban forests, and rewilded corridors that promote biodiversity and human well-being. Sponge city technologies will manage stormwater and prevent urban flooding. Transportation systems will prioritize walking, cycling, and electric public transit, making car-free zones the norm. Buildings will utilize passive solar design, hempcrete insulation, aerogels, and other climate-positive materials to minimize energy use. Wildlife corridors and green belts will reconnect fragmented habitats, allowing species to move and adapt to changing conditions. Water and waste regeneration systems. Water will be managed as a precious and regenerative resource. Rainwater harvesting, greywater recycling, and atmospheric water generators will ensure water security. Constructed wetlands and decentralized bioreactors will treat wastewater naturally while recovering valuable nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen. Closed-loop sanitation systems will turn human waste into compost, biogas, or soil nutrients. Zero-waste strategies will extend beyond materials to include full nutrient recovery and water reuse, closing urban metabolic loops. Universal health, education, and social equity infrastructure. A regenerative civilization cannot thrive without healthy, educated, and empowered citizens. Universal basic services will guarantee free access to education, healthcare, clean water, nutritious food, and secure housing. Universal basic income or universal basic assets programs will ensure financial security for all individuals. Lifelong education programs will emphasize ecological literacy, systems thinking, regenerative design, and civic engagement. Indigenous knowledge systems will be integrated into formal education and governance processes to honor traditional ecological wisdom. Governance for a regenerative civilization. Participatory and decentralized governance models will become the foundation of the solarpunk society. Citizens' assemblies, community councils, and deliberative forums will enable people to participate directly in decision-making processes. Digital democracy tools, including open-source voting platforms and decentralized resource management systems, will enhance transparency and inclusiveness. Legal innovations will include rights of nature legislation, granting legal personhood to ecosystems like rivers, forests, and wetlands. Ecocide laws will criminalize large-scale environmental destruction at the international level. Indigenous land rights will be legally protected, and indigenous communities will play a leadership role in managing ecosystems. Economic transformation beyond GDP. The solarpunk economy will move beyond GDP as the sole measure of success, embracing new economic models that prioritize human and ecological well-being. The donut economics framework will guide decision-making by balancing social foundations with planetary boundaries. Regenerative finance mechanisms, such as green bonds and climate-focused investment funds, will channel resources toward ecosystem restoration, renewable energy projects, and social infrastructure. Cooperative ownership models will replace shareholder-driven corporations, promoting equitable wealth distribution. Time banking and local currencies will foster community resilience and self-sufficiency. A global carbon dividend system will redistribute revenues from carbon taxes and pollution fees directly to citizens. The transition to a global solarpunk society will unfold in several phases. Pilot communities and demonstration projects, eco-villages, transition towns, and solarpunk city districts will serve as real-world laboratories for innovation and learning. Policy mobilization. Governments will implement Green New Deals, climate justice legislation, and regenerative development plans at local, national, and international levels. Mass deployment of solutions, renewable energy systems, regenerative agriculture, circular manufacturing, and zero-waste models will be scaled globally. Global governance reforms, international treaties and institutions will be restructured to prioritize climate action, biodiversity restoration, and social equity. Cultural mainstreaming, Solarpunk narratives will be embedded in education, media, arts, and social movements to build global public support for the transition. Global collaboration platforms. Effective global collaboration will be essential for success. A global Solarpunk network will facilitate knowledge exchange, technology sharing, and joint projects. An Earth Restoration Corps will mobilize millions of people, especially youth, to participate in ecosystem restoration, clean energy deployment, and disaster resilience building. Open-source technology commons will make green technologies and data freely available. A global climate reparations fund will finance just transition programs in historically marginalized and climate-vulnerable regions. Long-term vision, the next 50 years. By 2030, the world will witness a dramatic decline in emissions, the mass adoption of clean energy, and the regeneration of critical ecosystems. By 2040, carbon drawdown technologies will be operating at scale, the circular economy will dominate, and poverty will be drastically reduced. By 2050 and beyond, the planet will stabilize its climate. Biodiversity will be restored. Human well-being and planetary health will reach unprecedented levels of harmony. The world will emerge as a thriving, regenerative civilization where people and nature coexist in balance. From vision to reality. Creating the most advanced, equitable, sustainable, and regenerative Solarpunk society is not just an idealistic dream. It is an achievable, necessary, and practical response to the crises of our time. The technologies already exist. The ecological knowledge is available. The social models have been tested in countless local movements and projects around the world. What remains is the global willpower to act decisively, collaboratively, and compassionately. The choice before humanity is stark. Continue down a path of collapse or build a flourishing, regenerative civilization where every person and ecosystem can thrive. The future is not yet written, but by choosing bold action and collective transformation, we can write a Solarpunk future for all.